You know you can do all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, participation is key, just like participation in democracy. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Neither is supporting your favorite creators on TikTok. And we love the TikTok shop. Don't we now? I don't know. Let's see if that works. Again, thank you everybody for being here. I really, really appreciate y'all. Just as a reminder, numerous bits of information in the link tree that is in my bio, including I'll do this to start here. I just want to remind folks that there is a link in the link tree in my bio. It's this. For those of you who have voted already, you can continue to vote. This is Beats for Good. This is a contest open up to high school bands and musicians in the state of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Northern New York. And my daughter's band was one of 10 finalists of the 127 applicants. The concert comes up in July. If you go to the voting form, you click on the voting form, and then you're looking for the band Punch. You'll see a list of bands there. You can vote Punch. You can vote daily. You can vote more than once if you have more than one email address. But the voting closes on Friday. So if you wouldn't mind, I would really, really appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. All that information is included in the link tree that is in my bio. Also, you can join our Discord there. So please feel free to participate. Discord is our community. I was just reading that there's a very strong likelihood that Mr. Trump will continue or extend the TikTok ban because it was supposed to come up next week. But because they're negotiating with China regarding trade deals and whatever else, it's very likely that the deadline will be extended, which is why I wasn't talking about it because I kind of expected it. But just in case, we are also streaming on YouTube. If you wouldn't mind subscribing over there, you could head on over. Just, it's our show. The YouTube interaction is a little bit different, as we know, but please feel free. And it's kind of weird. Like I was on YouTube last night just doing a little bit of research, and boom, yours truly popped up. It was kind of wild. I wasn't really expecting it. But again, thank you for that. Please consider subscribing over there. Okay. I think everything else is out of the way. Oh yeah, don't forget, One Heart joined the team, and the deal with the stuff and the things and the stuff, because that's important too. Help us get out to the FYP. Really, really need your help on that, guys. All right, just a couple things before we get into our topic today. What should the role of government be? Really sort of, I got this idea because, yesterday we did the conversation about how conservatives are the problem. And I think there's a perception that certain people have about the government, the role of government. Some people don't want it to exist. Some people are full-on anarchists. Some people believe in a more traditional, communist style of rule, which would be no government, no class, no money, et cetera, et cetera. Some people claim they want small government, but yet they support large government. There's that. We'll get into that in a minute. But I guess first thing I want to do is I think it's really necessary that we address a couple things. Now, you recall. Now, I wish I could remember the date that I said this, because I said early on in the Trump administration, during the early days of Elon Musk's reign of terror, when there was all this kind of pushing and pulling for attention. And I said, I'll give it 6 months before he's out. Well, we didn't make it 6 months. We made it like 4.5 months. But he's going to do everything he can to leave his mark, so to speak. We know the damage that he's done with the interagency work. We can talk about the Doge cuts because that'll be is part of our conversation this morning. But his post on X, in case you haven't heard, was this massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. So there's that. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But also, I can't believe I'm even going to say this. I'm going to need to borrow some soap to wash out my mouth. But good for Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she posts on X. She says, full transparency, I did not know about this section on pages 278 to 279 of the big, beautiful bill that strips states of the right to make laws or regulate AI for 10 years. I am adamantly opposed to this, and it is a violation of states' rights, and I would have voted no if I had known this was in there. Okay, so we can timestamp this, right? Because we know, based on the conversation we had yesterday around the parliamentarian, remember there's rules in the Senate to if you're going to attempt to pass legislation through the reconciliation process, it needs to be specific to budget-related items. So there's going to be a lot of things in the big, bold, beautiful pile of shit bill that no restrictions so far. Shh. There's rules, which means that they're going to have to pull some of the items out. It's obvious, which means that even if the Senate passes a version, it's going to go back to the House. So if that provision is still in there, will MTG vote for it? And I do think it's interesting that she went public with this because she didn't have to. She did not have to go public with this. And I don't even know the specifics, but it's on pages 278 to 279. Basically, it tells violation, again, it strips states of the right to make laws or regulate AI for 10 years. Again, states' rights, brother. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's a little bit of political gamesmanship, sure, but I'm just a bit surprised that she went public with it because she didn't have to. But so it does one or two things. It just reminds her constituents that okay, if you didn't read this, what else have you not read? I did not know about this section on pages 278 to 279. Do you know what's in sections on page 1 and 2? Have you looked past the cover page? Did you just skip to the end? Did you look for the Cliff Notes version? Did you ask for the AI summary? These kinds of things, right? Yeah, public. You're right, Brett. Bad kitty. Telling us publicly she didn't do her job. What should government's role be, right? We have to continue to remind ourselves that our elected officials are there to represent us. We the people. Government of, by, and for the people. And again, we're going to get into that topic today. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens with this. I don't know where this is going to go, but as a reminder, unless everything, so you guys know, again, because you're the smartest chat on TikTok, when a body, either the Senate or the House, introduces legislation, if there's any changes after a bill is passed in a particular chamber, if there are any changes, it has to go back. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. You guys understand that, right? So there are going to be changes on the Senate version. They've already said that. We know that there are going to be changes, right? Some senators want even more cuts to social programs. Some senators think that kicking 14 million people off of their health insurance is not enough. Some people think that we should starve even more kids. Some people think that we should spend more money on the military and homeland security, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some people think that we should support gold embossed Oval offices. You'll see a video that I posted this morning about Mr. Trump bragging about 24-karat gold plating in the new Oval Office, and some internet sleuths determined that the artifacts that they were purchased at Home Depot for like $58 and then use spray paint to cover it up. So tacky is as tacky does. Anywho, any changes to the bill is going to have to get voted on again. So we'll see if she's a person of her word, right? Okay. On that topic, we should get into some specific, because we've seen members of leadership in both the House and the Senate. So Mike Johnston on the House side, John Thune, who replaced the turtle on the Senate side, attempting to deflect away from the fact that we know that this budget bill is going to increase the deficit. I think before I get to that, though, I just want to address this because you know how we often say that everything becomes a distraction. So at this point, the administration is. Thank you very much for the subscription. I appreciate you guys very, very much. There's a subwave, guys. I'm happy to say that we surpassed our sub goal. We're still obviously any support. We need 3 for the next 14 minutes to help support growth of our subscription channel. We're going to do a sub-only event this weekend. We're still putting the details together. Likely going to be on Sunday, but we'll make an announcement about that. So again, please consider subscribing. So any active subscriber will be eligible for benefits bonuses. You can either subscribe here or over at FactsHQ, which is FactsStillMatter.site. So this whole auto pen controversy is crazy. And as I've said in the past, everything is a distraction. So we're gonna I'm going to use all caps on True Social, and I'm going to tell my base that something horrible has been done, even though it wasn't anything at all, to avert their eyes from the fact that 14 million people are going to lose their health care. And as we learned yesterday from Proletariat, 41 million Americans receive SNAP benefits. 41 million Americans are subjected to cuts to the SNAP program, which means people who already live with food insecurity are likely going to have to worry about that again. And we certainly know that poverty is one of the leading indicators of crime. So when people lose their job, people lose their security. Oftentimes, the first thing to go is their sense of self, which means I've got to provide for my family and I'll do it however I can. Petty larceny, whatever that might be. So this is where our current administration sits. Remember, don't tell me what your values are, show me your budget. Okay, so with that said, this was a post from the president this morning.
With the exception of the, all caps, the rigged presidential election of 2020, the auto pen is the biggest political scandal in American history.
Okay, so what is he talking about? So the auto pen basically, if there's a stack of documents that need to be signed, we'll create the signature of, in this case, the president. Now, auto pens are used in other areas of, it's not just unique to the presidency. Okay, it is something that happens. People use auto pens. You can think of it as like an e-signature in a strange kind of way, but it's something that's used. All right. So I found some reporting on this. That's my cat. My gosh, what an obnoxious noise. There was a fact check done on this whole process. Okay. So the claims are that any of the pardons issued with use of the auto pen under the Biden administration would suddenly be invalid. And an attempt by the Trump administration to be able to say these pardons are invalid. First of all, why would you ask about this if you weren't interested in investigating the people who were pardoned when you said you weren't interested in investigating those people? And funny that this administration, who's been pardoning criminals right and left every single day, tax frauds, SAers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's just a distraction, okay? But let's address it. Legal experts say there is nothing to President Trump's claims that several or former member of President Biden's pardons, nothing to President Trump's claims that several of former President Biden's pardons are void because they were signed via auto pen. White House lawyers during the Bush administration said the use of an auto pen is perfectly legal, and constitutional scholars say that nothing in the Constitution even requires pardons to be signed anyway. And they note pardons cannot simply be overturned by a subsequent president. Trump is correct that pardons would be invalid, in fact, if, as he has claimed, any pardons were signed by a staffer without Biden's knowledge or consent. But Trump has offered absolutely no evidence of that. Trump has repeatedly invoked the auto pen issue in the last several days. As NPR explains, AutoPen is, quote, a generic name for a machine that duplicates signatures using real ink, making it easy for public figures to autograph everything from correspondence to merchandise in bulk. They are printer-sized machines with an arm that can hold a standard pen or pencil and use it to replicate the program's signature on a piece of paper below. Trump acknowledged that he himself uses an AutoPen, but only for, in his words, very unimportant papers. In a post to True Social on March 17th, Trump claimed that some pardons issued by Biden were hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by AutoPen. He specifically put members of the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the Capitol on notice. Quote, they are subject to investigations at the highest level. It's a non-issue, okay? It is a non-issue. I just want to throw that out there because this is an attempt to continue to distract while the big, bold, beautiful piece of shit bill is going through Congress as we eliminate social services and safety nets programs for millions of Americans. It's a distraction. Okay? Good. All right. I need some coffee. You guys know what this means. Please do that. So my strategy worked. For whatever reason, the things that I didn't say this morning are some of the reasons why we get our daily restriction. Anywho, okay. As a reminder, I just want to say this one more time. Elon Musk's statement I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those of you who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. He added in a subsequent post, Congress is making America bankrupt. This is not the first time Musk has attacked the bill. In an interview after the package was passed by the Republicans in the House, Musk said that he was, quote, disappointed in the massive bill, adding that it would increase the budget deficit, not just, that it would increase the budget deficit, not just decrease it and undermine the work. That doesn't make sense. The massive bill adding that it would increase the budget deficit, not decrease it, and undermines the work that Doge team is doing. That's a weird statement. Look, the president already knows where Elon Musk stood in this bill. I've got some sound for Caroline Levitt. We have the person who was tasked with cutting waste, fraud, abuse. We know that he found waste, fraud, and abuse, which was him. He was the fraud. He was the one that was wasting taxpayer dollars, and he was the one that was abusing democratic institutions and denying people accessibility. So that's that, right? So then the issue we have now is the spin. So as we discussed yesterday, conservatives are the problem because in this age of misinformation, disinformation, and deflection and pivoting, Kobe. I used to have a pretty good jumper, mid-range. They'll tell their base anything. And the expectation is any opposition, as we discussed yesterday when the removal of the fairness doctrine, you can go to any safe space, any echo chamber, and basically say anything that you want to say with the expectation that the people that you're telling it to will believe it. So Mike Johnson has gone on the record talking about the fact that there's like nothing to see here. Let's see if I have that sound, because I think I want to play that. That's probably the best place to start, and then we can walk our way through the various things that Mike Johnson has had to say about this big, bold, beautiful piece of shit bill, which is right. Hold on a second. Stand by. Okay, so he was on the Meet the Press with Kristen Welker over the weekend on Sunday, talking about this. All right, so this is what he had to say in regards to the big, bold, beautiful piece of shit. Hold on. Tech issues, shocker.
The big, beautiful bill does add to the debt. Will President Trump own that?
It's not going to add to the debt.
Are you really telling the American people this will not add 1 penny to the debt and deficit? You can guarantee that?
I am telling you this is going to reduce the deficit.
I mean, this is a person who has compared himself in some circumstances to biblical figures, being called by God into this role as Speaker of the House. I mean, this is a person who came up through Christian institutions and Christian organizations before he ascended into power into Washington. I know Mike. I worked with Mike many years ago, and this is not the person I worked with. And Joe, you know this. I mean, you know this. You've been in those rooms with religious conservative leaders in years past in your political career. There was not a culture of deception there. There was not a culture of lying and exploitation. Yeah, people had differences of opinions on how to deal with injustice or poverty or debt in the United States of America. But this kind of this brand now of Christian politician who will just shamelessly say whatever needs to be said, and in the Joni Ernst situation, double down on cruelty. This has been a dramatic change. I mean, and we're not even talking about things like PEPFAR, that my colleague Nick Kristof and USAID that my colleague Nick Kristof has highlighted so powerfully. I mean, many of these programs were instigated at the behest of Christian activists, conservative Christian activists in the Bush administration. And now the Republican Christian establishment is just turning their backs on all of it. This is a degradation. This is a decline, and it's happening right in front of our eyes.
So the quote is, this brand of Christian politician will just shamelessly say whatever needs to be said. And how do I want to say this? So we know that Mike Johnson considers himself a man of God. I've talked yesterday, and I've played some sound in the past about how he said he was called to the mount, that God spoke to him to serve. And he can stand there in front of the American people and just blatantly lie. So that is your Christian representation in the House of Representatives, person who's second in line to the presidency. Just bold-faced lying to the American public, okay? So it's not just Mike Johnson, though. So John Thune, as I discussed before, John Thune is...
assumptions.
Hold on. John Thune is the Senate Majority Leader, right? He's the man in charge in the Senate. He's the guy that replaced Mitch McConnell, right? So this is John Thune, who I had some hope for because he's kind of stood up in the past. And I guess we'll see how this goes through the Senate. But this is what he had to say on the exact same topic.
The Democrats saying they're going to fight against this with everything they've got. That doesn't seem to be your problem. Elon Musk seems to be your problem. Absolutely torching this bill here, saying everybody who voted for that should be ashamed.
Well, look, we obviously respect everything that Elon did with Doge. On this particular issue, we have a difference of opinion. And I think it's rooted in the fact that he's accepting the CBO assumptions that are built upon a static scoring assessment of the effect, the macroeconomic effect, growth effect, that these changes will have on our economy. And all the modeling that we've seen suggests that the changes that are being made in the tax policy, particularly making permanent bonus depreciation, interest deductibility, R&D expensing, are going to lead to significant growth. And you couple the growth with the biggest spending reduction in American history, and you will see a reduction, not an increase in the deficit. Mm-hmm. So we have a difference of opinion. He's entitled to that opinion. We're going to proceed full speed ahead.
And this is I want to call that point out because they're referring to the CBO, which is the group that reports on these things, the Congressional Budget Office. So our politics these days has become a quest for confirmation bias, literally. So they will attempt to either discredit the reporting source that has always been the reporting source when it comes to attempting to continue to lie to their base. So we have the data, okay? CBO's first score of the House reconciliation bill. The Congressional Budget Office released its first comprehensive estimate of the House's fiscal year 2025 reconciliation bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, finding that before accounting for interactions, the bill would add $2.3 trillion to the deficit over the next decade. Incorporating our estimates of interactions and adjustments announced by the House leadership Monday, we estimate the bill would add $3.1 trillion to the debt as written. So let's just real quickly, let's just listen to Mike Johnson's sound once again, because I think it's really, really important. Because this is the question that Kristen Welker had asked about whether or not, if anything. Okay, well, you can listen here. Listen for yourself.
If the big, beautiful bill does add to the debt, will President Trump own that?
Fair question. If, okay? If. And his response is?
It's not going to add to the debt.
It's not going to add to the debt. Okay.
Are you really telling the American people this will not add one penny to the debt and deficit? You can guarantee that?
I am telling you this is going to reduce the deficit.
I mean, okay. So again, if, and every single credible source, every source that's ever been used to track these kinds of things, the CBO in particular, right? CBO is the same group that reported on the 2017 tax cuts, said the exact same thing. Come to find out, the CBO was exactly right. Even though they couldn't even take into account for the pandemic, they still nailed the number. So here we are again. Let's discredit the source, right? Mike Johnson asked pointedly, if this increases the debt and adds to our debt and increases the deficit, will President Trump have to take the blame for that? It's not going to. Okay, are you going to guarantee not $1 is going to be added? I'm not going to answer that question in the guarantees because life's not a guarantee. Okay? Like, can we just be real with these kinds of things? Everybody, all you got to do is look at the math. The math ain't mathin'. The math is just not mathin', right? We know that. So we're going to watch it. right? And we are going to watch it. I've seen estimates anywhere from $2.5 trillion to $4 trillion. But I've never seen anybody say it's either going to be budget neutral or we're going to shave off. Add this into fact. Why then would they attempt to pass legislation to raise the debt limit? Think about it, right? This is part of the lie. So when you're out in your spaces, we need 2 subs for our sub goal, guys, if you wouldn't mind. When you're out in your spaces and you're listening to people and you're having conversations either with your friends, your neighbors, or people that you work with or whatever they might be, and they say, no, this is going to cut the deficit, or no, we're not going to add to the debt. Really? Show me how. Because everything that I've read, can we be objective? Excuse me. Wow. Can we be objective and land on the truth? Remember, the conversations that I think we should have as we're moving through this, hellscape of news, you could have differences of opinion on something, right? You could say, okay, well, from what I've read, the sky is blue. Okay, from what you've read, the sky is orange. Okay, so how do we break the tie? In political speak, right, we talk about tertiary, secondary, and primary sources. A primary source would be the congressional record. A primary source would be a court document. A primary source would be a transcript. There's nothing wrong with opinionized and or editorialized content as long as it's rooted in fact. You could be reporting on something. You could say, you could have your opinion, right? And then thank you, Obi. You could have your opinion. And as long as that source is cited and that source is a primary source, then that's how you break the tie. Okay? So we have the CBO. We have what is this other committee? We have the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. We have these groups that have been reporting on the same thing every single year. And now, because they're lying to their base and they have to attempt to convince them because they promised during the campaign season that they're going to reduce the deficit and attack the debt. Think about the tech bros and the crypto bros that we talk to. Oh, it's interest on our debt. Okay, well, we know that the biggest spender in a 4-year term in presidential history is Donald J. Trump, and he's going to break his own record. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we're moving through this, like I said, this hellscape of conversations. Okay, let's see here. Where do I want to go next? And then I'll get into our topic. I think we probably should listen to what Caroline had to say in regards to the big, bold, beautiful bill, because she's the one that I think, do I have this right? Hold on. Sorry, guys. Do I have it? I think I do. I've got so many little bits of sound to play for you guys today. It's freaking crazy. There's that one. I don't need that one. Oh, damn it. Live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted. I thought we made it through, but apparently not. Why? I got the restriction. Damn it. I thought we avoided it. Oh, well. Okay. I don't think I have that. I'll play this. All right. So the messaging machine, as we discussed yesterday, is the weapon, right? The misinformation, disinformation is the problem. The tool is the right-wing echo chamber. That is the damage that's happening to our society. We can talk about it in terms of education. We can talk about it in terms of media literacy. All those things apply. People don't are unwilling to look past the headline. And I don't want to sound like a broken record because I talk about this a lot, but it's really, really important. So here's another example of this. Okay. I'll just play this out for you. This is Nicole Wallace, and she's talking to, I forget this person's name. I'll find out for you in a second.
The Republicans are responsible for all of this.
Yeah, they are. And I'll tell you what was interesting. So we did a focus group not that long ago, last week, with Trump voters who were older. And we asked them about Medicare, Medicaid, and these cuts, and they just didn't believe that they were going to happen. The right wing messaging machine right now, and if you watch the Sunday shows, you saw Republicans doing this. They have decided to just lie about what the bill does, which is sort of par for the course, right? I mean, Donald Trump lied about how he was going to lower grocery prices, they just lie about things, and there is a whole machine there to then convince people of it. And so this is one of those things, though, if it passes, the proof's just in the pudding. Like, people will feel it when those cuts happen, the same way that when the tariffs start to really kick in, they will feel those. And it is those personal consequences that will really impact people.
Right. I mean, it doesn't matter the topic. It doesn't matter whether it be crime, whether it be immigration, whether it be education results. It doesn't matter. This issue is extremely important because there is legislation that is going to impact people's lives. These are not EOs, right? It is Sarah Longwell. Thank you. I thought that was her. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Bruce Wayne's mother, always on the job. Thank you, friends. This has much more impact than these EOs because we know that EOs are then subjected to court rulings as to whether or not they're constitutional. Now, this is legislation, right? So this is going to go into effect. This is going to change people's lives. This is going to be kicking people off. Remember we went through the exercise yesterday, the claim that Joni Ernst made that we want to make sure illegals are kicked off Medicare, Medicaid. They're not on Medicare, Medicaid. They can't get it unless it's an emergency situation and or 14 states that offer it. Only for pregnant people and for kids, which accounts to less than 1% of the Medicaid expenditure. So again, more lies in an attempt to prop up the billionaire class, right? And we'll get into this in just a moment. So I think that is the most important thing that we can't forget. When we have the fairness doctrine overturned, we have people like Mike Johnson and John Thune being able to go to safe spaces and just blatantly lie to the American people. And because the right has done such an amazing job of conditioning and indoctrinating their voters for decades, any counter to that is considered fake news, right? That's the problem that we're in. Okay. I want to get into this topic a little bit because I think it's a question that we don't necessarily ask enough. All right. So in my head, the only way I could kind of put this together was to think about this in terms of what is it that we want. And I want to hear people's opinion. Like, what should the role of government be? Now, depending on who you speak to, some people want, no government. Some people want nothing to do. They do not want to even hear of the government. Most of those people don't necessarily understand how government works. Most of those people don't really see the advantages. And like I've talked before, government has to exist because the private sector doesn't do its job, right? So we have to have programs that support marginalized groups. So then we're going to get into that. I'm going to do a little bit of a breakdown for you as to, the different approaches to government depending on your ideology. I didn't sleep like a wink last night, so my brain was working. So I even wrote a couple of speeches potentially that we could even talk about. So I'll get into that in just a bit as to how I would pitch this to, what government could and should do for you. All right. So these are things that I kind of thought about that I think are kind of an interesting way to look at how government should function. So question of what role government should play is one of the oldest and most debated in political philosophy. And the answer depends heavily on your values, your ideological beliefs, and historical context. Several key areas from my perspective. These are the most political sort of aspirations and ideologies that government should run under, right? Protection and security. Broad consensus. Protection and security. Defend against threats, military, diplomacy, domestic and foreign. Maintain internal order. Police, courts, law enforcement, right? We know criminal justice system. I don't want to get too deep into all these. I just want to think about it from high level, okay? From like the macro level, like 100,000 feet. So these are things that I'm suggesting that a role that government plays. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm not here to pass judgment on these things. I'm just saying it's good or bad. I'm sorry. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying these are kinds of the roles that government should play. Rule of law, right? Enforce laws fairly and consistently, and then guarantee contracts, property rights, and due process. Okay? Infrastructure and public schools. Infrastructure and public goods. Build and maintain roads, schools, water systems, etc. Provide services the private market may not supply. Like I said, government exists because the private sector doesn't, including sanitation, public parks, etc. And then dispute resolution and justice. Offer a fair legal system and judiciary, uphold civil rights, and prevent discrimination or abuse. Hard to argue with that, right? So then we can talk about it from a progressive and or social democratic view. Remember I said yesterday, you cannot be fiscally conservative and socially liberal. That's a cop-out. You can't be. Because if you're fiscally conservative, are you willing to invest in public health, for example? Are you willing to say that we need to overfund our public education? Now, people would claim that would be fiscally irresponsible. I disagree. So I would ask people to really think about their label. And I get it. I mean, I fallen into that trap myself years ago to say that, oh yeah, I'm socially liberal and I'm fiscally conservative. Not politically, you can't be. Around your house, sure, maybe, I guess, but not politically. You can't run a government our size under that, guys. You just can't. Okay, progressive social democratic view. Government should also, in my opinion, ensure economic fairness, progressive taxation, worker protection, labor laws, OSHA, programs like that protect workers, provide universal services like healthcare, education, and housing. Healthcare, education, housing. I believe the government should play that role. Regulate corporations to protect consumers and the environment. Actively promote equity and social justice, civil rights, gender equality, anti-discrimination, things like that. So again, we can add that to the list. As we've discussed many times, what kind of society do you want? What kind of country do you want to live in? Do you want to live in one that has the baseline government protections like we just went through, right? Protection and security, rule of law, infrastructure, public goods, and the resolution dispute and justice. And then do you want economic fairness, universal services like healthcare, education, housing, protection for consumers, and equity and social justice? Is that really a lot to ask? Those are roles that I think the government can and should play. Conservative and or libertarian view is going to look at the role of government differently. From a conservative libertarian, again, from my perspective, so I researched this and I found some common themes between a conservative approach and a libertarian approach to government and or no government. Focus on limited intervention in the economy. Protect individual liberty and private property. Reduce regulation and allow free markets to function. Emphasize personal responsibility over social safety nets. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps, for example. And then preserve cultural traditions and national identity. Now, imagine an alien being from beyond the stars comes to our country and is standing in front of someone, and they have no idea what party affiliations are. They have no idea how divisive we become. They have no clue about any of that stuff. And then they said, well, how does your government run? And someone says, well, we believe in limited intervention. We believe in individual liberty and private property. We believe in reduced regulations and free market. We want to emphasize personal responsibility over social safety nets, and we preserve cultural traditions and national identity. Sounds great. You see the problem with that, though, right? Because that rhetoric has turned into the violation of civil rights. So I said this yesterday during this breakdown, how I think conservatives are the problem. I see that because they believe in this theory of limited government, but yet that is absolutely not what today's Republican Party is. And how could any libertarian who does claim to be about less government intervention, I don't want the government in my business at all, how could anybody who claims to be a libertarian vote Republican? So it's this, again, economic fairness, universal services, protection for consumers and the environment, equity and social justice versus limited intervention, individual liberty and private property, free markets, personal responsibility, and cultural traditions and national identity. And I know that that's very general. Again, I'm trying to look at this from high level as my brain was working on caffeine and bananas. So that's kind of I'm going to start there. So then there are other views on the role of government, okay? Authoritarian, for example. Government should control most aspects of life to ensure order and stability. It is my belief now that the right-wing echo chamber, through rhetoric, through hatred, through mis and disinformation, and the acceptance of Russian propaganda, believes that we should no longer live in a democracy, that they believe that we should live under an authoritarian state. I would be willing to have that conversation. I'd be curious as to what other people think about that. But it seems like that's what they want. I mean, just think about the idyllic way they look at Trump. Just think about how the memes that are created. They call him the king, right? The pictures of him with a crown on his head, the gold embossed Oval Office, right? They see him that way. They don't see representation of democracy. And again, part of the strategy, the effective strategy of the right, has been to break our systems and say, you see, democracy doesn't work. You need to be led. You need to be told what to do. Why do you think he idolizes people like Putin and Xi Jinping and Viktor Orban and Erdogan? They rule with an iron hand. Bukele, who was the other? Bolsonaro. They rule as authoritarians. He idolizes that, and he's been able to convince his base, the same people, this is the weird part, the same people that talk about freedom and liberty are the ones that support someone who wants them to tell them what to do. Right? It's weird. Anarchist. Okay, so we have authoritarian on one side, anarchy on the other side. Government is inherently coercive and should be abolished in favor of voluntary cooperation. There are anarchists that we talk to every day, right? And then the technocrat. Government should be guided by experts and data rather than ideology or populism. You could make an argument that we've got elements of all those things that currently exist. Being told that the people who are best served and rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse are unelected bureaucrats who have no clue how government's supposed to function, right? All right. Modern challenges that shape government's role. I told you guys, I did a lot of work. If you appreciate the work that I did, you can support the channel. We are crowdfunded. Okay. Modern challenges that shape a government's role. Climate change. Should government regulate emissions, fund green tech, or let markets innovate? I say absolutely. Again, this is the general welfare. This speaks to a foundational principle of our government, the general welfare. Secure the blessings of liberty. The general welfare, in my opinion, is to make sure that we have clean water, make sure that we have clean air. We know, obviously, part of the conspiracy belief that the right has been able to perpetuate for decades is that the climate change does not exist. It does. We know it does. And don't forget, the new FEMA director doesn't think that there's a hurricane season in the U.S. Good luck, Florida. Just saying. Good luck, Florida. Good luck, Georgia. Good luck, Southeast. Good luck, Gulf states. Good luck with that, as we are now in hurricane season. Should government regulate emissions, fund green tech, and let markets innovate? I say absolutely. Those are things like the whole Green New Deal that got just absolutely decimated through right-wing spaces. And because Democrats were feckless, they didn't take back the argument, not in an aggressive, assertive enough way. Absolutely. I think that is a role of government. Healthcare. It's a question. Is it a right or is it a commodity? You guys know how I feel about that. It is a right. Healthcare is a right. I think a government's role should be to provide healthcare for its citizenry. Think about the UK. Think about Canada. Think about socialized states like Scandinavia. Most of the Western world has said, we believe that our citizenry should have access to healthcare. Okay, I could spend all day talking about it. I believe it's a right. Okay. Inequality. Should government redistribute wealth or ensure equal opportunity? Should the government regulate wealth distribution? This is an attack on capitalism. right? I've become more and more anti-capitalist as I've gotten older, especially being a small business owner, because I see the wealth gap, because I see the fact that the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer and people are starving. So I do believe government holds a role. I mean, whether that be through tax policy, whether that be for more increased regulations, et cetera. I certainly see the government playing a role in regulating wealth inequality. Information. Should government regulate misinformation or protect speech at all costs? Yeah. So we discussed this when we did our breakdown comparing, our freedoms to other countries around the world. Freedom of speech. Sure, we all can support it. UK, for example, has free speech, but they also have protections against hate speech. So do I believe that everything should be considered free speech? I don't, because we've seen the harm. Now, I certainly understand terms of service. I get all that, but I believe government has a role. That's what the topic is today. I believe that government has a role in protecting speech, meaning that not everything should be considered free, so to speak. Okay? And then technology and AI. What role should government play in regulating powerful emerging tools? I don't know yet how I feel about this, because AI, for example, is a threat to the kind of work that I do. I'm a writer, I'm a communicator. These kinds of things are easy. People who can, although I still think that there's a personalized touch to writing, and especially when it comes to the kind of work that I do. But should government have a role? I believe so. So my point with most of this is that I don't necessarily believe in big government. I just believe in responsible government if government is doing the things that they're supposed to do. Provide for the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty, provide for the common defense, protect our citizenry, guarantee health care, guarantee clean water, guarantee proper education. It's that kind of stuff, right? So how you want your tax dollars spent is kind of the question. What are we spending our money on? I don't think anybody would disagree. Again, trying to be objective, right? If the goal is to try to find common ground with some of this stuff, I don't think anybody would disagree that there is waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. I would start with the Department of Defense, right? I would start with that. I would say that there is certainly some issues with bureaucracy and over administrating in many, many examples. But without the role of some government agencies, people in our country would lose their lives, whether it be through social safety net programs or organizations like the FDA, who protect us from foodborne disease, the EPA, protecting our environment, all these kinds of things. These are all roles that I think our government should play. Okay. All right. So again, just to kind of recap that first part, core roles, broad consensus. I think can we all agree that protection and security should be a role the government plays? Rule of law, enforcing our laws that we have and then guaranteeing rights that are on the books, right? And then expanding rights. And don't forget, as we discussed yesterday, this is the first time that I can recall, and I don't remember any point in American history where we are legislating taking rights away, right? Like, we are literally attempting to pass laws and have already legislating taking rights away. So I believe in the expansion of rights in our society. Now, you can say that's big government, whatever, I don't give a shit. That's my approach to it. So again, these are the core roles in my opinion. Rule of law, and then infrastructure and public good, right? I think those are core principles I'd like to think that we could all agree on. You guys see any issues with those three things? Protection and security, rule of law enforcement, and then infrastructure and public goods. Makes sense, right? So then to the left would be progressive or liberal ideas, ensure economic fairness, provide universal services like healthcare, education, protect consumers, and promote equity and social justice. That's to the left, ironically enough, core principles of the left. And then to the right would be emphasize limited intervention, protect liberty and property, allow free markets, preserve cultural traditions and national identity. Now, you see the fundamental differences between those two things. Progressive and social are about society, about the individuals within it, meaning that we believe, people who are progressive believe that the power of the individual creates a better society for all. The more educated the individual is, the more educated our society is. The healthier the individual is, the healthier our society is. The more equitable our society is for the individual, the more equitable it is for all. And the right tends to look at it as it's all about me. I want limited intervention. I want my liberty and my property protected. There is crossover, sure, but in general, there's that split. Remember, left tend to vote for the greater good, the community. The right tends to vote for the individual, me, myself, and me. Okay? All right. So then I thought about what would an idyllic government look like? So, like I said, I didn't sleep much, so my brain was running. An idyllic role for government is one that strikes a sustainable, just, and dynamic balance between liberty, responsibility, equity, and progress. It reflects both principle and pragmatism, protecting individual rights while enabling collective flourishing. I tried to look at this well-rounded, try to take little bits and pieces of everything, and this is kind of what I came up with. So please feel free to pick it apart. Protect rights and freedoms. Ensure civil liberties, privacy, and freedom of expression. Defend minorities and dissenting voices, and then maintain the rule of law and impartial justice. Anybody have an issue with those three? Again, this is under protect rights and freedom. Ensure civil liberties, privacy, and freedom of expression. Defend minorities and dissenting voices, and then maintain the rule of law and impartial justice. Does that make sense? It makes sense, right? It's not a stretch. Okay. Now, promotion of equal opportunity. Guarantee access to quality education, healthcare, and housing. Guarantee access. Level the playing field so everyone can rise based on merit and effort. I don't think there's any disagreement. And again, the attack on DEIA was an attempt to mask the fact that mediocre white men capped out in middle school. Okay? So I don't think there's anybody that would say that we want people to achieve based on merit. Is there anybody opposed to that? You could be a communist. You could be as far left as you could possibly get. No one wants, we all want merit. We want to be compensated. We want to be rewarded. We want to be promoted. We want to advance based on our own accomplishments, right? Our own individual merit. Is that controversial? I don't think it's controversial, right? Okay. And then break down systemic barriers rooted in race, gender, class, geography, etc. Okay. Do these things sound radical? This is what, Facts' approach to an idyllic role of government. Okay. Build and maintain public infrastructure. Create and steward infrastructure, roads, digital networks, energy grids, public transit, housing, communities, public schools, more about infrastructure. And then invest in long-term national well-being, like getting rid of the lead pipes in Flint, Michigan, clean water, resilient cities, science, make sure the grid is the best. To me, these things are kind of examples of what American excellence could really look like. How do we spend our taxpayer dollars? Do we want to invest in our society? Remember the analogy I gave you guys? You got $100,000. You could either spend $100,000 on a new RV or fixing up your house. I want to fix up the house. Conservatives want to buy the RV. They do. They'll tell you they don't, but they do. Okay. And then safeguard the common good. Tackle external threats, war, pandemic, and existential risks like climate change. A role of government. Promote public health, safety, and sustainability. Not only promote, but provide. And then uphold ethical governments, transparency, and accountability. If you're going to use my taxpayer dollars, I want to know where you're spending it, how you're spending it, and I want you to be accountable for it. Not just at the federal level, but at the state level. That includes the court systems. That includes everyone. And then uphold ethical government. I did that one. Uphold ethical governance, transparency, and accountability. Is that a lot to ask? It's not. Again, this is what I decided was idyllic. This seems like it's just low-hanging fruit. But again, if we're looking for compromise, we can try to find, across the aisle attempts to try to govern to protect everybody. I'm hoping that this is considered reasonable. Enable a fair and dynamic economy. Ensure free markets with smart regulations that prevent abuse, monopolies, and corruption. Okay? I believe in the free market. But there has to be levels of regulation so that we're not becoming this oligarchy, which we are. Prevent abuse, prevent monopolies, and prevent corruption. Protect workers and consumers. Why, again, would we eliminate the Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau? Why? There's no reason to. Because the people who stand to benefit from the removal and or elimination of the CFPB would be people who are committing fraud. Okay? Invest in innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation. Do you remember when we did our small business live? I think we came up with the number. I think it was like 98.5% or more of all employees in America work for businesses that are considered small by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, less than 500 employees. And like 85% of those work for businesses that are less than 100 employees. We do not prop up the job creators. The job creators in our country are small businesses. It's math. It's simple maths. The numbers don't lie. We don't do enough to support them. At the state that I live in, for example, extremely hard to do business here. It really, really is. You take the good with the bad. You also take a lot of civil liberties. You also take a lot of, the fact that women's rights to their body are codified in our Constitution, that we do care about the environment. You take the good and the bad, just like everything else, right? Just like everything else. You take the good with the bad. It depends how far you're willing to go or how much bad you're willing to take. Okay. Ensure free markets and smart regulations that prevent abuse, monopolies, and corruption. Protect workers and consumers and invest in innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation. And then foster social trust and civic unity. Promote civil discourse, democratic norms, and media literacy. I figured you guys would know that I would include something like that. Civil discourse, right? The ability for people to air grievances, promote civil discourse, like encouraging more people going to town halls, promote people running for municipal offices, whether it be select board, school board, things like that. Accepting the fact that we do have free and fair elections in our country and accepting the results. Avoiding, legislating away the ability for either party to gerrymander, right? And then media literacy. We need to invest in media literacy, education and training. Act as a referee, not a puppet of corporations or partisan interests. Okay? And then build institutions that earn respect and reflect shared national values. Build institutions that earn respect and reflect shared national values. I think I would reframe that now that I read it. I would say it's support and grow institutions that earn respect and reflect shared national values. Like propping up organizations that do the work of protecting rights, like the ACLU, for example, right? Or higher education, or community service organizations, or people that are out fighting for, groups like the Trevor Project, for example, organizations like that are defending the rights of people who are under assault in our system. Okay, so that's kind of like my sort of head. So like the categories that I put were the protecting rights and freedoms, promoting equal opportunity, building and maintaining public infrastructure, safeguarding the common good, enabling a fair and dynamic economy, and then fostering social trust and civic unity. Idyllic government is a servant, not a master. A protector, not a parent, a steward of justice, opportunity, and security for all, not just the powerful. That's kind of like my close on that. All right. I've got a little bit more, and I kind of wanted to sort of compare our country to other countries. Before I do that, let me bring up Eve, let her do some mod announcements. Everybody keep tapping. Good morning, friend. Guten Morgen, my friend.
Good morning. I thought I'd pop up here and do a quick little mod announcement.
Thank you. You have a microphone.
I do. I got one, and it connects directly to my cell phone, so I can take it with me anywhere.
I love that.
I know. So do I. All right.
That's great.
Good morning. Y'all know that I'm here to remind everyone to please support our fabulous hostess with the mostest. He's our nourishing narrator navigating through noxious and nefarious news narratives. And he's here every day with that fiery feral fist for freedom, bringing you facts over feelings, because facts still matter and they always will. So if you have the means, let's help Facts meet his gift goal and subwaves. You can show support directly with the apps in the link tree of his bio, as well as the Facts HQ and Discord link. You can reach the HQ via FactsStillMatter.site, and you can check out all the new merch. If you're a sub, you can get 10% off that merch. We have a summer fun merch raffle coming up, as Steve has mentioned. It will include all of our active subscribers on both TikTok and the Facts HQ. You'll be entered to win a free t-shirt or coffee mug of your choice from the Facts merch store. All you need to do is be subscribed in either location, but you need to check and make sure that your subscription is active because you don't want to miss out on your chance to win. Now, if you're just looking for that fun free forum for the Facts family to frolic, then Discord is the place. If the link doesn't work, try to copy and paste it into a browser or Google. If that still doesn't work, reach out to a moderator and we'll hook you up. When you join, please open a ticket. There's a couple quick questions. If you need assistance with that, ask in the unverified lobby and a moderator will walk you through it. Now, if you haven't already, please click that follow or heart me up at the top of the screen next to Fax's name. You can join the team for the cost of a penny. You can do this every day, and it helps to keep us relevant and on the FYP. The main thing that we ask of y'all is to just interact in the comments as well as tapping your little hearts out. It's always free to tap and share out the live. If you don't have any friends, just click the copy link. It works the same as a share and no one will be the wiser. After this live stream, when you have a chance, head on over to YouTube and subscribe to Facts Still Matter there as well. You can rewatch shows for any information you missed, and subscriptions on YouTube are free, just like following your favorite creators here on TikTok. Lastly, be kind, smile at a stranger, and have a fuck your feelings kind of day.
Thank you so much, my friend. Hearts in the chat for Eve, and let Eve be the face and voice of all the mods that exist out there in the TikTok space, because those of us who do this daily could not do it without our mods. So wins and hearts for mods everywhere. Thank you, Eve. I appreciate you, friend.
I appreciate you. Love you. Whee!
All right. So, yes, all that stuff. And we did not avoid our restriction today, guys, so I really need your help. Tapping like crazy. Don't forget about the gifting goal. Don't forget about subscribing. We appreciate you. Thank you to our new subscribers today. I really, really appreciate you guys. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of new merch in the merch store. It is Pride Month. Go check out the Pride merch. It's in the merch store. You can find that at FactsStillMatter.site. Drop a comment over there and let us know what you think of the store, too. Okay, so when I was doing some research on some countries that kind of look at sort of the things that I just discussed, like the things that would be considered idyllic, Scandinavian countries came up quite a bit, as you might expect. And then the country of Singapore seemed to show up in some of the research that I did. So I kind of did a little bit of a breakdown, and I compared some of the things that I would like to see as idyllic. Remember the list: protection and freedoms, promote equal opportunity, building public infrastructure, safeguarding the common good, enabling a fair and dynamic economy, and then fostering social trust and civic unity. Those categories, right? So then I did a comparison between ourselves, the Nordic model, I guess we'll call it, Denmark, Sweden, etc., and then Singapore. So protecting rights and freedoms. In an idyllic government, upholding civil liberties, privacy, and free speech. The Nordic model is strong human rights, independent judiciary, and then freedom of press. In the U.S., strong constitutional protections, but freedom can be impacted by polarization and mass surveillance. Yeah, and then in Singapore, civil liberties exist, but are limited. For example, restrictions on the press and protests. So people look at freedom differently, I think. In my opinion, one of the biggest lies that's been told to the American people is that we are the freest nation on earth. That's just not true. It's just not true. Do we have freedoms? That was cool. Thank you. Do we have freedoms? Yes, we do, but they're not unlimited as people would like to think. Okay. Promoting equal opportunity. Universal access to healthcare, education, and housing. Nordic model. High equality, free education, and universal healthcare. United States, opportunity exists, but highly unequal by income, race, and by zip code. And then in Singapore, heavy investments in education and housing, but opportunity is meritocratic with some elite favoritism. So the reason I wanted to include Singapore is because there are certain things like, for example, heavy investment in education and housing, but yet they fail when it comes to certain aspects of the whole promoting equal opportunity. A lot of it's based on merit. So I'm trying to give you guys a broad picture as to how certain societies function outside of our own. Public infrastructure, building public infrastructure, efficient, equitable, modern systems for transportation, energy, and internet. The Nordic model, excellent public transit, green energy infrastructure, and then digital services. The U.S., uneven. I think uneven is a stretch. I just kind of categorized it that. Uneven infrastructure, strong in some regions, neglected in many others. So I think the word to use is inconsistent. Think about the massive infrastructure investment that happened under the Biden administration, which, by the way, helped reduce the deficit because of the efficiencies. That's an example of our infrastructure that is that's been overlooked for decades. So uneven, strong in some regions, neglected in others. In Singapore, world-class urban design, transit, and digital infrastructure. Again, a society that is investing in efficiency. So they said, obviously much smaller, they said we need a robust infrastructure to continue to grow. Safeguarding the common good. Idyllic government would be proactive on existential risks like climate, pandemic, disinformation, etc. And then the Nordic model, leading climate action, strong public health systems. U.S., divided action on climate, to say the least, good scientific base, but politicized responses. Safe to say, right? Politicization cost people their lives during C-19. It did. And then in Singapore, strong state-led responses to crises, but limited transparency or dissent. They respond to the public threat potentially, but they just don't tell people what they did. Bad, I would score that like a C-. You know, you're addressing the problem, but you're not necessarily telling people how you are. I don't think that's not much different than what we do here either, but just categorized in a different way. Enabling a fair and dynamic economy. Idyllic government would be free market and smart regulations, a free market plus smart regulations, protecting workers and supporting innovation. Is there any arguing with that, really? Nordic model, high taxes, strong safety nets, unionized labor, generous leave policies. So their citizens pay for these freedoms, but they get these freedoms. And then ask anybody who's in that society, think about the whole conversation about Canada becoming the 51st state. You're going to ask a Canadian citizen, even though they're going to complain about their health care. Yeah, just so you know, you're going to have to give up your free health care. Wait, what? Yeah. We don't have that here. Wait a second. Wait, what? No, I don't want to give that up. Well, you were just complaining about it yesterday. Well, I don't want to give it up. Well, you're going to become the 51st state. You're going to have to. I don't want to give that up. Would be an example, right? Is there any of us here of the 600 people? I know we don't have a lot of MAGA participants much anymore, but is there anybody here that wouldn't be willing to pay more for their taxes to guarantee they had health care? Anybody? I mean, really? Like I've said before, you find me an economic argument against universal health care and I will delete my account and you'll never see my face again. We would save money as a society. We would save trillions of dollars over a decade if we didn't have to worry about, again. All right. Where was I? Let's see. Was I on risks? Yeah, free market, high taxes, strong safety nets in the Nordic countries, deregulated markets in the U.S., low safety net, high inequality. And then highly planned capitalism in Singapore, low taxes, efficient bureaucracy. They provide more for their citizens, but there's a lot of meritocracy and a lot of inequality when it comes to the elites tend to achieve a bit more. And then fosters social trust and civic unity. In an idyllic government, build shared identity, civic discourse, democratic institutions. That would be idyllic. Again, is that a stretch? Is that something that should not be attainable for us? In the Nordic countries, very high trust, high voter turnout, strong civic culture. In the U.S., declining trust, polarized media, voter suppression, rising extremism. In Singapore, high national pride and social unity, but limited free political expression. In summary, Nordic countries come closest to the idyllic vision. They balance liberty, equity, prosperity, and civic trust, but rely on high taxes and strong state capacity to do it. The U.S. excels in liberty, I put air quotes around it, and innovation, but struggles with inequality, fragmentation, and political dysfunction, primarily due to misinformation and distrust. And then Singapore offers efficiency and prosperity, but at the expense of personal freedoms and political pluralism. So, point of this exercise, at least for me, when I was kind of putting it together, was like, all right, the things that we should be thinking about from an idyllic government perspective are really not that extreme. The list again, guys, okay? This is the list. Protect rights and freedoms, promote equal opportunity, build public infrastructure, safeguard the common good, enable a fair and dynamic economy, and then foster social trust and civic unity. Are those extreme? No. Those aren't extreme. Those are things that we should absolutely expect. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Hello, brother. I was just going to give you your official clown welcome back.
Thank you. I appreciate you for that. Thank you very much.
Sure. And
do you have a thought on my prompt?
I'm one of those who, every time I hear somebody on the opposing side, talking about big government, the big government's too big, I can't help but say we have over 300 million people in this country.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be kind of big. Not only do we have over 300 million people, we have most of the money.
Yep.
So, no, we need a larger government to help maintain this, not control it, maintain it. The debate should always be, what do we do with the money? Where does the money go?
How we spend it.
Yeah, those are all fair debates to have. But let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. The Grover Norquist ideas of how big the government should be, and this should just be the Wild West economy. It's just ridiculous. And the only people who really promote that are the wealthy who don't want to pay taxes. And they've
fair point.
Yeah, and they've convinced people down the economic line that one, you can be rich too one day, and then your taxes won't be taken away. Your money won't be taken. People fall for it. Every dirt farmer to every middle class person thinks, well, one day I can be rich. Statistically, no, you can't. Sorry, your chance of becoming wealthy is so insignificant as to be almost non-existent, and it's getting worse and worse every year. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, where especially since Ronnie Reagan, that wealth gap has gotten bigger and bigger. So your chance is getting even smaller and smaller. So, but you're talking about people who live in fantasy land. So,
I think what I was saying earlier, and you just touched on this, since Reagan, the message about how conservatives are the one that want to ensure a small government, but yet they've been able to manipulate their voters when it's absolutely the opposite. So when they think small government, they think fewer regulations, they think fewer agencies. What they fail to realize is that whole lie has been told to them so that legislation can be passed to benefit the people that are ripping them off. Brown people are not stealing your money. Yeah. Members of the trans community are not stealing your money, are not taking your jobs, are not taking your civil liberties. It's the corporate oligarch class, and that to me is the epitomizes big government. When you build when you enhance, build on a system that already benefits people that look like you and me, that already benefits the people at the top, whether it be from a privileged perspective or from a capitalistic financial perspective, and you continue to do that, that to me is the prime example of big government. That's not small government. Well, that's not responsible government. That's not a controlled government.
Yeah, you said something a second ago that is also part of that big insidious lie when they talk about regulation and screaming, we need less regulation. Well, hang on. The debate to be had is, what are we regulating and why? Exactly. Not wipe them all out. And it's, when the general public realizes, hey, go to any store, pick up a product, read the warning label. Some dumb SOB did that.
It's a regulation.
Well, yeah. Some dumb SOB drank radiator fluid. Yeah. And now it says not for internal use.
Correct.
Good
point. You have to put that there, right? It's a good
and so and now when we look at regulation, it's the same thing. Well, some corporation decided to poison the local water supply, and if we make less regulation, they can continue to do that, and now you can't drink the water. They can poison the air, and now you can't breathe the air, and. When we wank about gas prices and California is so high, yes, we have our own grade of gasoline so we can freaking breathe. And we have more cars on the road than any other state. We also like breathing. So yes, certain regulations have to be had in order to ensure that. Is it more expensive? Sure it is. Is lung cancer even more expensive than that? Heck yes. So
and somebody just made this comment in the chat saying, but the conservatives are fine regulating women's bodies.
Oh,
no
absolutely.
Problem there. No problem there.
That has nothing to do with their business acumen. It's more their social demands.
Correct.
And the proof is that, yes, we want to regulate your bodies and we want to make you have that baby, and after that, screw you and that baby are on your own.
Yep.
So, yep. So I just wanted to say welcome back, and
thank you, buddy. Appreciate you,
and let you know I had to get rid of my rooster, and I had to replace him with a duck. So now I wake up with the quack of dawn.
But try the veal. See you later. Hold on, I've got it. Hold on. Wait, do I have it? Yeah, I have it. Okay. All right. That's a fair point. Like, we can think about just in the recent last 40 years, the recessions that we've had. You could draw a line directly to deregulating the banking industry. For example, the recession in 2007, 2008, 2009 was because we deregulated the banking industry, letting unfettered, irresponsible capitalists just do their thing at the expense of the American economy. Story told very well in The Big Short, right? Creating bullshit products, knowing full well that they were irresponsible in doing it. Ninja loans, no income, no job. And that was an example of deregulation of that industry. And we see it across the board, right? So big government, ask yourself what that means. And it's a big government that's responsible. Again, think about this. And this is just facts as ideas, right? You guys can form your own opinions. And I want to hear people what they think government's role should be. I want to hear from you guys. Protect rights and freedoms. Anybody disagree with that? Promoting equal opportunity. Building public infrastructure. Safeguarding the common good. Enabling a fair and dynamic economy. And then fostering social trust and civic unity. Is there anybody that would disagree with that? Like, even, you could be the most hardcore red hat wearing MAGA. Could you disagree with those principles? I don't know if you could, to be objective. Okay. So I kind of turned this into like a stump speech. It's like I said, I didn't sleep much. So I had a lot in my brain that I wanted to get out. This, again, just my thoughts. What government owes us and what we owe each other. This is kind of how I titled it. Government is not our enemy. It is the instrument we share to protect our rights, expand our opportunities, and safeguard our future. We must not settle for a system that leaves millions behind while the powerful rig the rules in their favor. We must not accept crumbling bridges. We must not accept polluted air, unaffordable care, and a politics that turns neighbor against neighbor. A truly just should do 6 things and do them well. It should protect our rights, our privacy, our voice, our freedom to speak and worship and live in peace. It should promote opportunity, not just for the wealthy or the well-connected, but for every child in every zip code. It should build public infrastructure so our roads, our broadband, our schools prepare us for the future to be the best in the world. It should safeguard the common good from pandemics, pollution, and the climate crisis. It should create a fair economy, one where hard work pays off and no one gets left behind. And it should foster trust in each other and trust in our democracy itself. This isn't fantasy. It's a choice. Other nations have done it. We can do it too. We have the resources. We have the tools. What we need is the will. So when government's decent, when it's smart, when it's accountable, it doesn't hold us back. It lifts us up. Like, it just seems simple to me. I mean, and maybe that's the problem, right? Maybe we are this like paralysis by analysis that we fall into. Like, think about people with ADHD. Like, if you're overwhelmed by something, you can't move. You get stuck. And I think that's where we get stuck. I don't want us to settle. I don't want us to be like, I don't want progressive candidates to be talking about expanding on the ACA. I want them to be talking about universal health care. I don't want to be talking about incremental changes to the federal minimum wage. I want them to pick a number and say, I am going to run on a $23 an hour minimum wage, federal minimum wage. Do not let the right own the conversation by saying, oh, that's going to drive your prices up. Your prices are going to go up anyway. Why not put people in a position that they can participate in our economy? I don't want us to settle for table scraps when it comes to public education and public health. I don't want people to find themselves in a position that they have to go to work to be able to pay for childcare. You know the model, right? Single parents, working parents, mom or dad goes back to work. Mom goes to work after having her baby, right? Because she only gets 6 weeks maternity leave, so she's got to go back early. She can barely find daycare, right? She finds daycare finally. The cost of daycare is what she makes at her job. She goes to work to have insurance. She goes to work so she can have insurance, but every dollar she makes goes to childcare. That is so fucked up in a system, in a country where the president of the United States is bragging about his gold embossed Oval Office, accepting $400 million gifts from the Qatari government, even though we know the truth behind that he actually sought it out. It's not overly complicated. It's really not. So then I added a little bit more. This is more specifically progressive. The last one I did was kind of a little bit more sort of, maybe I can find some common ground that are people, if I was running, would be in my district to say, I'm going to find some common ground here. This is directly at progressives. We've been told for decades that government is a problem, that we're better off when the wealthy write the rules and the rest of us are left to fend for ourselves. Well, I've got news for you. That's not freedom. That's exploitation. True freedom isn't the absence of government. It's the presence of justice. It's knowing you can go to the doctor without going bankrupt. It's your kids getting a great education no matter their zip code. It's clean air, fair wages, safe streets, and a government that shows up for you, not just the billionaires and corporations. Progressives believe government should be a shield to protect our rights, a guide to build a better future together, and a ladder to lift up the poor and get people to the middle class. And yes, when wielded honestly and boldly, it can be those things. Is that a stretch? Is that a stretch? I want our space here to become a space where we can say, not about just calling out the bullshit, because we'll do that every single day. We will make sure that people are aware of what's in this bill. But I also want people to be like, we don't have to accept this. We don't have to accept it. We don't have to just ask for table scraps. You don't have to be like Kipper and put your nose in the table, hoping a piece of the roll falls on the floor. Kipper's my dog, in case you don't know, by the way. We should demand this shit. We should absolutely demand it. I don't want you to feel grateful that you have a Democratic elected politician who can closely represent your values. I want you to tell them what you want. I want you to demand social justice. I want you to demand changes to the tax code to protect the marginalized. I want you to demand overfunding public education. No more. If anything positive can come from this era in our political, in our political discourse, it's maybe that people will finally realize that there are other countries in the world that have these things. And there's no reason that we can't. It takes courage. It takes guts. It takes people saying, I'm not going to be apathetic. Every day, guys, I close the show with do something, right? Every single day. It doesn't have to be like this. We don't have to accept table scraps. Okay. Again, a shield to protect our rights. I think progressive government, and idyllic government should be a shield to protect our rights, a ladder to lift up the poor and the middle class, and a guide to build a better future. And yes, when wielded honestly and with integrity, it can be those things. Okay? Okay, this is sort of just random. I'm going to share that with you guys. So this is like a specific breakdown of the idyllic framework from a progressive lens. Okay? So role of government, protecting rights and freedoms. Progressive policy agenda would be to restore voting rights, to restore the Voting Rights Act, all right, to be able to get these things. Codify Roe v. Wade. End mass surveillance and defend civil liberties. Enforce anti-discrimination laws. Promote equal opportunity, universal pre-K, tuition, and free public college. If anybody disagrees with anything I'm saying on this list, let me know. I'll start from the top. Codify Roe. End mass surveillance and defend civil liberties. Enforce anti-discrimination laws. Promote equal opportunity, universal pre-K, tuition, and free public college. Medicare for all. Affordable housing guarantees. End the student debt crisis. Build and maintain infrastructure. Green New Deal, rebuild with climate in mind, expand broadband to rural and urban underserved areas, modernize water, transit, and energy systems, safeguarding the common good, aggressively tackle climate change, public investment in pandemic readiness, end corporate welfare for polluters, enable a fair and dynamic economy, raise the minimum wage to $20 plus, enforce antitrust to break up monopolies, empower unions, tax the ultra-rich and close loopholes, foster social trust and civic unity by ending gerrymandering, overhaul campaign finance, Citizens United repeal, civics education and public media, and then rebuild trust in government through transparency. This is not radical. It's not. It's what most people want and what democracy demands and or should demand. A country where we invest in each other, not just the stock market, where freedom means more than the freedom to struggle, because we're not fighting for bigger government, we're fighting for a better one of, by, and for the people. Go build it. This is within our scope. These are things, again, did anything that I just say there, is anything there radical? If you were to put people in a room, if you were to ask people to, listen, please put your red hat, please put your Democratic, your AOC shirt down. Close your eyes and then ask yourself, I'll run through the list again, and then ask yourself objectively. Now, I know that there are some social issues that are connected here, but objectively, if you oppose these things, codifying Roe. Now that may be too much to ask, but I'm going to use the list anyway. End mass surveillance and defend civil liberties. Is there anybody on the right that would disagree with that? Anybody? Is there enforce anti-discrimination laws? Would there be anybody that would be opposed to that? Medicare for all. Would there be anybody objectively that would be opposed to guaranteeing access to health care? Objectively. I'm not talking about rhetoric. I'm talking about objectively. Would there be anybody that would be opposed to having a guarantee for affordable housing? Objectively. End student debt crisis. Would there be anybody that would be opposed to that? Objectively. You get the idea, right? This is the hard part, because those things are not complicated. They're not. It's not radical. It's not it's not communism. It's not socialism. It's responsible governance. Right. Like, why would we not want to promote those things? And this is the part that I think that for me, it boils down to this whole America First nonsense. And we know it's rooted in white supremacy, but people don't even think about it in these terms. People who are, the ultra nationalists, not patriots, but nationalists, think that, America First, they only think of it in terms, in my opinion, they only think of it in terms of a military supremacy. They don't see what that could look like. Can you just try to imagine for a second, or I'm not going to say close your eyes, but sure. Just try to imagine for a second what our nation, with all the resources that we have, with all the wealth that we have, with all the capacity that we have, can you imagine what this country would look like if we did what I talk about, overfunding public education, demanding that teachers be some of the highest paid professionals in our nation, demanding the fact that we should have universal health care, a tax code that supports the middle class, guaranteed investments in housing so it's affordable? Can you imagine what our nation would look like? Can you imagine what that would look like? Do you have any idea? Have people even thought for a second? The problem is, no, we haven't, because we've been in survival mode. And that's a problem, right? Typically speaking, when it comes down to change, you're either inspired to do so or you're desperate to do so. And you never want to be in a situation where change only comes through desperation. You always want to be inspired. You always want to be inspired to change, whether it be to change habits, to change jobs, to change your outlook, to change your status, whatever that might be. You never want to be desperate to do it. You always want to be inspired to do it. And desperation in our country is almost like the daily MO. Okay, I got another restriction for what? Themes that some may find uncomfortable? Everybody, F1 in the chat. I don't know what that was. People found these conversations uncomfortable. This just shows you how weak people are, right? To get reported for that. F1 in the chat. Guys, if you guys can gift like crazy right now, I've been told that if you really fire up the algorithm, whatever gifts you have, gift like crazy, subscribe, tap like crazy, whatever it looks like. Any gifts you've got in your bag, just throw them my way. I think that is one of those things that I've been told that really help push back against those kinds of restrictions. Thank you. I mean, just think about that for a second, right? To have the best infrastructure. Why does a country like Singapore have some of the most modernized cities? It's because they've made a commitment to invest in it. Thank you, guys. Don't forget, join the team. Tap like crazy. Also, if you wouldn't mind, like I said, just continue to gift. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate you very, very much. Again, we're crowdfunded, so if you want to support the channel, you can do so right there. It's not a lot to ask. Affordable housing guarantees, modernize water, transit, and energy systems, public investment in pandemic readiness, end corporate welfare for polluters, enforce antitrust to break up monopolies, empower unions, tax the ultra-rich and close loopholes, overhaul campaign finance, civics education and public media, rebuild trust in government through transparency. How could anybody disagree with that? I'm not just some radical progressive leftist, silver-haired Gen Xer. I'm just someone who thinks, right? I'm just somebody who thinks. Don't use the excuse that Singapore only has 6 million people. Don't use that as an excuse. That should then be an opportunity. Have you ever been outside of the country? We did this study that 30% of Americans have never left the U.S. Okay? 30%. It's a pretty high number. It's a pretty high number. And I bet if you kind of broke down that number a little bit more, I think you'd find a pretty large number of people who have not even left their state, and then their town, and then their neighborhood. That's a problem, because we have gotten to the point now, and this has been as sort of the death by 1,000 paper cuts. We've gotten to the point now where we just accept bits and pieces and scraps. I'm not saying that's a choice. Maybe part of it is. I'm just saying that that's what's happened. We know that harm comes at the hands at the corporate elite, because ultimately, they're the ones that are fueling this kind of stuff. Donald Trump is not running the executive branch. He is the mouthpiece. He is the galvanizer. He is the glue. He is the face of the movement for fascists, Christian nationalists, racists, bigots, homophobes to set policy in our country. Okay? I'm going to play a little sound, and I'll use that as a segue.
Go through and accomplish.
I'm going to play some sound. That voice was Russ Vought. Russ Vought is the director of the White House Office of OMB and Budget. Russ Vought is also a key figure in the creation of Project 2025. This relates to what we're talking about, okay? So I'm going to play this sound for you, and then we'll talk about what he has said in regard to this interview and also the impact.
Things that you have become known for is that you were one of the architects of Project 2025. And one of the things that was noteworthy during the
he has said in
things that you have been 5 was that President Trump really distanced himself. He said he doesn't know anything about it. It's not something that he had any knowledge of. But obviously you did, and you're now there. And I just want to show our viewers just some of what was on your checklist. A lot of them have others that are kind of in the pipeline, including ending funding for PB funding. Is it fair to say that what you are doing now is in part colleagues worked very hard on Project 2025?
No, of course not. The only people that are delusional about whether the president is the architect, the visionary, the originator of his own agenda that he was very public about throughout the campaign, in which you are seeing him in rapid fashion go through and accomplish, are his adversaries. And I think it's one of the reasons why you had to have the last segment with the leader of the Democrats, who are in such a disarray, because instead of talking about the real issues of the forgotten men and women, they're coming up with these fake news stories.
I'm not suggesting that he's not in charge. I'm just saying that
I am.
That now it's pretty clear that what he wants to do and what you planned are dovetailing.
I think the president was very clear with his agenda, and he is going forward with that agenda, and he has been at the helm and the originator of all of these ideas.
Okay, last question. Other recommendations from Project 2025, eliminating the Fed, privatizing Fannie and Freddie, banning medication abortion. Are those still on the agenda?
What's on the agenda is what the president has put on the agenda, most of which he ran on. And you will continue to see the things that he's interested in doing, and those people like me will be executing that vision.
You heard it, right? I mean, don't forget, during the campaign, the president was talking about how he'd never heard of Project 2025. Well, conveniently, there is a website. It's called the Project 2025.observer. I'm going to pop it in the mod chat now, and then we'll put it in the Discord. Okay? So it tracks policies. It tracks references to Project 2025 based on the legislative agenda. So I'll just go through a few. So let's talk about USAID, for example, since that's gotten a lot of attention. So there were 6 objectives outlined in Project 2025 as it relates to USAID. Cut the budget of USAID. Completed. Rescind USAID policies that address climate change and help countries transition away from fossil fuels. Completed. Prohibit USAID from funding sexual reproductive health and reproductive rights and gender equality programs. Completed. Prioritize funding for faith-based organizations. Completed. Cut international disaster assistance funding for programs in Yemen, Syria, and Afghanistan. Completed. Eliminate Chief Diversity Officer at USAID. Remove DEI requirements. Eliminate funding for partners that promote discriminatory DEI practices. Completed. That's one example. Okay, that is one example. There's a tracker. 1,326 days, 3 hours, 19 minutes, 11 seconds until the end of the term. This is the current presidential term. That's what we're fighting. That is one example. Let's go to the White House. 13 objectives outlined in Project 2025 regarding the White House. Use the Congressional Review Act to undo Biden-era rulemakings. Completed. Give political appointees the power to personally review and authorize appropriated funding. That's DOGE. Again, give political appointees the power to personally review and authorize appropriated funding. That is DOGE. That's completed. Require regulatory analysis and OIRA review of the historically independent agencies. Again, that's DOGE. Completed. What else? Remove the words sexual orientation and gender identity, diversity, equity, and inclusion, abortion, reproductive health, and gender equality from every federal ruling. Completed. These are all things that are in Project 2025. You can track it to the line in this website that I just shared, that the mods will put in the general chat. You can follow along. Clear out the NSC, the National Security Council. Replace all essential detailees with staff aligned to the new president's priorities. Completed. Give the Office of Personnel Management in the White House the responsibility to conduct security clearance investigations. Completed. Instruct the CEQ to rewrite its regulations to implementing NEPA. President Trump rescinded the 1977 order giving CEQ authority to issue these regulations and instructs the chair of the CEQ to, within 30 days, propose rescinding all regulations the council has issued to date. Eliminate the interagency working group on the social costs of carbon. Completed. This is, again, climate change denial. Issue an executive order abolishing the Office of Domestic Climate Policy. Completed. Okay? So, as we've discussed in the exercise that we just went through about a responsible government and what the role of government should be, one role of a government should not be to blatantly fucking lie to its voters. Russ Vought, one of the authors of Project 2025, through the Heritage Foundation, the director of OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, responsible for basically signing the checks, telling people through that interview that no, this is the president's agenda. This isn't ours. The president's agenda is Project 2025, and we are literally checking the boxes. That's the White House. Let's look at a couple more. Where was the one that I really wanted to look at? Department of Defense. This is a good one. Eliminate use of public monies for transgender surgeries. Okay? Completed. Reverse policies that allow transgender individuals to serve in the military. Completed. Prohibit abortion travel funding. Completed. Abolish DEI offices in the Defense Department and military. Completed. Reinstate service members who were fired due to their refusal to comply with the C-19 vaccine mandate. Completed. Direct the military to assist in building border wall. Completed. Deploy active duty personnel and National Guardsmen to the border. Completed. Increase defense burden sharing with allies. Not started yet, but that's coming. Don't worry. In progress, reduce U.S. forces posture in Europe. Again, pulling troops from bases throughout Europe. Bases, by the way, that are connected to NATO. Interesting, right? Not started yet. End congressional review of arms transfers to foreign countries. That has started because of the deal that he just made with Saudi Arabia, right? We're going to give you more arms. Yeah. In progress, end Cybercom's participation in federal efforts to fortify U.S. elections. Funny. And then remove Cybercom from the oversight of the National Security Agency, meaning that we're going to eliminate departments who are responsible to investigate cybercrimes. Funny. These are all things that are directly in Project 2025. It's not the president is following his own agenda. This is the Trump administration's agenda. This is it. This is the agenda. You can track this. Let's do one more. Let's do, where's the one that I really wanted to look at? Oh, okay. We talked about the CFPB, the Consumer Fraud Protection Bureau. Abolish it. Part of the list of organizations identified under DOJ, which again was an element of what was the, hold on, let me get the exact language. Give political appointees the power to personally review and authorize appropriated funding. That is the creation of DOJ, or the expansion of access for DOJ, right? And then you go to the agency involved, the CFPB, which is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. One of the targets by Elon Musk during the DOJ exercise was to eliminate the CFPB, abolish the Consumer Protection Bureau. That's one of the elements of Project 2025. That's on the tracker. And that's happened. It's in progress. Like what? Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Thank you. Why, again, why would you eliminate an agency whose job is to protect consumers? An agency, by the way, I think they had like a $2 billion budget and they peeled back like $16 billion for consumers because of fraud. So you eliminate that agency. It's in the script, friends. It's literally, it's not the president. It is the president's agenda. He's right about that, Mr. Vaught. You are right about that. That's the only honest thing you said. But the misdirection and misleading said, no, it's not us. It's not us. It's the president. No, it's the president's agenda that was written for people like you. Christian nationalists like you, Russ. Because you were caught on a hot mic, don't forget, Russ. Right? This is the guy who basically has told you, oh yeah, the president, this is Project 2025. You know, he's going to, well, of course, he's going to go out publicly and just deny it. But here it is. And now that we're seeing it happen, now that we're watching everything, there's more to come here, right? There's more. Think about, these are the agencies that are covered under this tracker. USAID, Department of State. What's the Department of State? Withdraw funding for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. Completed. Withdraw from the United Nations Human Rights Council. Completed. What do you know? Prohibit the flying of, quote, divisive symbols, such as the rainbow flag or the BLM flags at U.S. embassies. Completed. These are in Project 2025. This is what Marco Rubio and his team of whatever the hell they are have done. Reinstate the Mexico City policy banning aid to groups that even communicate about AB services. Completed. Withdraw funding for the WHO, which is the World Health Organization. Completed. Suspend all visas to people from countries that do not accept the return of immigrants ordered deported. In progress. We're seeing that every single day. Identify and curtail U.S. RAP refugee admissions. We've seen that happen. That's continuing right now, depending on where you're coming from. 500,000 people that were granted, refugee status now are just kicked out of the country. Not my opinion, friends. This is not Facts' opinion. This is not some freaking radical, silver-haired progressive that's coming up with all this bullshit. This is what the data tells us. So remember how we were just discussing about how in these conversations, in our quest for objectivity and the truth, right? For people to say, well, that's not the president's agenda. Okay, then explain this for me. Explain how this is in Project 2025 and this is what the president just tweeted. Explain how Project 2025 calls for unelected bureaucrats, Elon Musk, to establish this agency to go after funds when we saw it happen with Doge. So the right-wing spin is exactly what Russ Vaught is attempting to do. No. This is the president's agenda. It's not ours. Okay. You can continue to tell yourself that. Good luck. All right. So this, as it relates to our topic today, everybody please keep tapping and sharing. Continue to gift. Got that restrictions hanging out there, guys. I'm not sure if it's going to take the live down. So anything you can do to support the channel, be appreciated. This is a poll that was produced by CNN in support with Politico. Let me give you the poll criteria. conducted by SSRS online or by phone from May 5th to the 26th among a random national sample of 2,539 U.S. adults from an address used based sample or through random digital dialing. The data is charted, it's hard to read, by poll start dates. Percentages may not add to 100 due to rounding. Respondents who are selected are either mixed and or depends or no opinion are not shown. Okay, so random poll. The question is, a record high share of the public says the government should be doing more to solve problems. A new survey conducted by SSRS finds that most Americans, 58%, now say the government should do more to solve the country's problems. A record high number, more than 30 years of polling. This particular poll has been run for 30 years. All right? So this is what it comes down to. Most Americans now say the government should do more to solve problems. Question. Some people think the government is trying to do too many things that should be left to individuals and businesses. Others think the government should do more to solve the country's problem. Which comes closer to your own view? 58%, a record high number from May, said the government should be doing more. These are random, again, this is a random dialer. Okay, it's a random poll. Now, we've talked about polls. Public opinion polls are just that. It's not a candidate poll, because a candidate poll requires somebody to actually go and vote. This is a public opinion poll. And public opinion polls are pretty accurate. It's a pretty good test of sentiment, right? 58% of people surveyed, of the 2,600 people surveyed here, believe the government should be doing more. Neither the Republican nor the Democratic Party has consolidated a majority of the public behind its approach, with more than 4 in 10 saying that neither party can get things done or has strong leadership. A new CNN survey conducted by SSRS finds, despite those widespread doubts, Americans increasingly say they see meaningful differences between the two parties. The poll taken as public opinion resettles in the first months of Trump's second administration also finds a record high share of the public saying the government should be doing more to solve problems. Americans are evenly split on which party best reflects their views on the role of the federal government, with 1/3 of respondents saying neither party does. Amid a wave of skepticism about government's role, 58% of people surveyed believe the government should be doing more. Party does. Question is, right? The question is, how do we get people to vote for change so that the government can do more? Question, overall, do you think having an increasing number of people of many different races, ethnic groups, and nationalities in the U.S. is mostly a positive thing? 72% of people surveyed believe that diversity, equity, inclusion, acceptance. Again, the question. Most continue to see diversity as enriching, not threatening the American culture. Overall, do you think having an increasing number of people of many different races, ethnic groups, and nationalities in the U.S. is positive? 72% of people surveyed believe that. 72%. If people could be anonymous, if people could be, whether it be, see those interviews where they change the voice of person and they're shadowed out. Yeah, I believe in, you know what I'm saying. 72%. It's huge. And then support for legalizing AB under any circumstance is the highest it's been in decades. 61% of people surveyed in this poll believe that women's rights to their body should be protected. So a government of, by, and for the people, it's not really representing the needs and wants of the American people, right? And then most in the U.S. say American democracy is under threat. 49% of people surveyed say that they believe democracy is under threat. 36% say it's not, and 13% say their opinions haven't changed. Right? Like, it's amazing to me, right? And we talk about these things in terms of what can we find consensus on, right? The data tells us this. And again, the right will use this to say, well, it's a CNN, but no, it's a poll that's been done by SSRS, a polling agency that's been doing the same poll for 30 years. They've been tracking it, right? You can't lie with the numbers. 49%. So in this case, it's the majority of people, not the majority of the majority of people in the poll. 49% of people say democracy is under threat. Okay. Highest ever. 61% of Americans believe that women should have rights to their body. God, what a wild concept. 72% see diversity as a strength. And 58% of people surveyed said the government should be doing more. That's what this conversation is about today. It's friggin' wild that we've gotten here. And that's because of, say it with me, friends, money. People like Joni Ernst, who's heavily funded by lobbyists, heavily funded by far-right organizations, can go to her constituency and basically sit in a town hall and say, hey, we're all going to die. And then double down on her bullshit. Lie to the American people. Mike Johnson, Christian, lying to his base. Literally lying to people about the fact that the big, bold, beautiful bullshit bill is going to add to our deficit. Lying to them. Because power, money, access, etc. This is why when I say to you guys, the majority of people believe the way that we do, it's not an opinion, it's the truth. Overwhelming majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to their body. Overwhelming majority of Americans believe that diversity and immigration and diversity and different opinions and different views and different cultures are a strength. Overwhelming majority of people in our country believe that firearm violence is a huge problem and that we should be doing something to regulate. Overwhelmingly so. The American people are telling our government what we want. The people elected are the ones that are saying, we don't care what you think. We don't give a fuck. We do not care what you think. We're going to do what our corporate donors tell us. This goes back to my plan for an idyllic government, which, again, the categories, don't forget. Protect rights and freedoms, promote equal opportunity, protect rights and freedoms, ensure civil liberties, privacy, and freedom of expression, promote equal opportunity, guarantee access to quality education, healthcare, and housing, build and maintain public infrastructure, create and steward infrastructure, safeguard the common good, tackle external threats and existential risks, enable a fair and dynamic economy, ensure free markets with smart regulations, and foster civil, social trust and civic unity. These are the things that we should demand, like not settle. Why do we do that? Apathy? We feel like our voice doesn't matter? It doesn't matter unless you use it. That's true. Okay. Let's see. Do I want to talk about that right now? All right. Potentially some good news. So Jasmine Crockett has officially announced that she is going to be running for candidacy for ranking member on the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. The Oversight Committee, which is one of, if not the most powerful committee in the House. Jerry Connolly's passing away has opened up that seat. That special election, by the way, to fill his seat, I think comes up in September. She has decided that she is going to run for this. Now, we will see what happens because I don't know if you could find a more qualified person. But she posted her letter. So I'm going to read it to you because we don't get access to these kinds of things. I mean, people should. This is all public record. I'm going to read it because I think this is great and I want people to hear what Jasmine has to say. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so I can read it without squinting. Okay. Dated June 3rd. So yesterday. Dear colleagues, I write today with a heavy heart but a clear purpose as we continue to mourn the loss of our colleague and friend Jerry Connolly. My thoughts, prayers, and sympathies remain with his family and all of you during this time of bereavement. Since the start of the 119th Congress, the late ranking member Jerry Connolly led oversight Democrats in the field in the fight to hold the Trump administration accountable. It was my distinct privilege and absolute honor to serve alongside him as the vice ranking member. In this moment, Americans are demanding a more strategic, aggressive, and energetic fight, understanding that fierce urgency, I formally announce my candidacy for ranking member of the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Boom. With a focus on standing up for American families, defending the Constitution and the rule of law, and ensuring the government serves the people, not the privileged few. Our country is in an existential crisis, driven by an out-of-control executive with a flagrant disregard for our Constitution, our way of governance, and our very way of life as citizens of a democratic republic. The administration has refused to respect congressional authority, abide by lawful judicial orders, or respond to public outrage. The magnitude of these unprecedented times warrants a resistance and tactics never before seen. We must pull back the curtain on the unmitigated chaos under Trump 2.0 and translate our findings to the American people in a way that they can digest. Her background. As a young girl, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, raised by my working mother and preaching father. My mother was a federal employee for almost 40 years and has dedicated her entire professional life to the United States government. From the U.S. Postal Service to the Department of Treasury and the Department of Defense, my mother has served with honor and fidelity. Protecting federal workers isn't just part of the job description, it's personal. I left St. Louis to attend college in Memphis, Tennessee, with dreams of becoming an anesthesiologist. While in college, I experienced my first dose of discrimination up close and personal, leading me to change course and enroll in law school in Texas. Inspired by the civil rights attorneys who came to my aid in Memphis, I pursued justice as my profession. When the public defender's office opened, I left my first legal job at a civil litigation firm to work in the criminal defense arena. My first run for public office came at the age of 28, and I ran for Bowie County District Attorney. Although I came up a few votes short, I went on to become the elected Bowie County Democratic Party chair in rural East Texas, where I focused on building party infrastructure and recruiting precinct chairs and candidates up and down the ballot. Soon after that election, I started my own law firm. A few years later, I opened a second location in Dallas and focused on civil rights, criminal defense, and personal injury law. My practice is always centered around the vulnerable, the disenfranchised, and the underdog. And that same sentiment I bring to public office. A decade after my initial run for public office, I ran for Texas state rep and won in the closest state house race in the entire state. It was close. It was during my service in the state legislature that a congressional giant first took notice of me. The late chairwoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson, after more than 30 years in Congress, entrusted me to carry forward her legacy of building a fairer, more inclusive America. And just as the Honorable Elijah Cummings tapped former Ranking Member Jamie Raskin to serve on oversight, Ranking Member Raskin also tapped me to become a member. From the moment I entered Congress, I did so with deep gratitude for those who paved the way and those that continue to pour into me. As a public defender, civil rights and criminal defense attorney, state rep, and now member of Congress, I've spent over 2 decades fighting for justice and equity, whether participating in investigations into Governor Abbott's Operation Lone Star, which evaluated state border policies, or initiating them as it relates to the Texas Maternal Mortality and Morbidity Review Committee's failure to assess post-abortion ban-related deaths, or representing thousands of Texans in court, I have demonstrated a strong ability to conduct fact-based, rigorous oversight that holds the powerful accountable. Moving forward together. My leadership philosophy has always been centered squarely and solely on getting the job done. No task too big, no task too small, as long as the people benefit. And if ultimately the people benefit, then does it really matter who gets credit for the work that gets done? But recently, I've given this maxim a lot of thought. I've considered if that mindset continues to be of service today, because no longer can it be the case that as Democrats, we continue to go above and beyond to get back-breaking work done, yet receive no credit. Former President Biden lowered inflation and unemployment. He steered us clear from a recession that most believe to be all but inevitable and saved the world economy. Yet Joe Biden was attacked for the price of eggs. It was congressional Democrats under the leadership of Speaker Nancy Pelosi who delivered COVID relief to the American people. Yet it is Trump's signature on those checks that has been imprinted into the American memory. It is the Democrats who have fought tooth and nail to protect SNAP, Medicaid, Social Security for the working class. Yet we're the ones labeled out of touch. We're the ones that are labeled the elites. This cannot be allowed to continue. House Democrats, especially while serving in the minority party, remain liberty's last line of defense. We have an obligation to fight and a duty to win. From the pulpit of the Oversight Committee, the ranking member must lay out our case against Trump 2.0 and his accomplices. the Republicans in the House, and discharge this message across the nation. The ranking member must succinctly summarize the most salient points of our evidence. It is paramount that the ranking member be ready to rapidly respond to the opposition's arguments and rebuttals in a manner that does not play into their hand, but renders the opposition's tactics ineffective. Our work cannot be solely reactive. We must be strategic in laying the groundwork to win back the House majority. Every hearing, every investigation, every public moment must serve the dual purpose of accountability and must demonstrate why a House Democratic majority is essential for America's future. Each of the members who serve with me on oversight is talented and has their own personal connections to the work we do. As ranking member, I will elevate each of our members and coordinate our efforts with leadership as we gear up to retake the House majority. I know that a rising tide lifts all boats, and that is why I've consistently hit the campaign trail to do more than 100 events across the country, raised over $4 million for the Democratic Campaign Caucus Committee, and supported more than 74 candidates directly. Additionally, I was the 7th highest fundraising House Democrat for the first quarter this year. I am not only ready to meet the moment, but I am prepared to bring home wins for our caucus, this great country, and the world. My commitments to you. Should you honor me with your trust and support, I pledge to you the following commitments. Upholding the Constitution and defending the rule of law. The Constitution is not a suggestion. It is the foundation of our democracy. Yet we have witnessed unprecedented efforts to erode it. The Trump administration continues to show blatant disregard for the rule of law, the separation of powers, and the principles that guide our country. As ranking member, I will work tirelessly to ensure that this administration is held accountable and that congressional oversight remains a powerful check on the executive branch. Field shadow hearings will be an effective tool to use because no one, not even the president, is above the law. Keeping the American people front and center. Oversight is not just about politics, it's about people. From rising costs to an impending recession, American families are facing real challenges. While the current administration governs by chaos and cruelty, House Democrats must be relentless in shedding light on the failed policies that are harming everyday Americans. I will ensure that our hearings, investigations, markups, roundtables, etc., are used to elevate the voices and struggles of working people across this country. Protecting and promoting a strong federal workforce. Federal workers are the backbone of our government. They play a critical role in ensuring the safety of our food, our medicine, and transportation, securing public safety and national security, delivering our mail, supporting our education and healthcare systems, ensuring that veterans receive the benefits and care they have earned and deserve, and so much more. A strong apolitical civil service is essential to the fair and effective delivery of government services. I will prioritize protecting federal workers from political interference, intimidation, and retaliation. In the majority, I will work with Speaker Jeffries, the rest of the leadership, the committee, and members at large to ensure that in real time we are in sync. This would include hosting listening sessions so that our committee is aware of what members are hearing in their districts, as well as making our committee website more interactive for members of the community. Our Democratic caucus represents the beautiful diversity of America itself, spanning generations, backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives that make our party strongest when we stand united. The House Oversight Committee can be a powerful tool for accountability, transparency, and ultimately for winning back the trust of the American people. But it will only be as strong as the unity and shared purpose we bring to it. I respectfully ask for your support and your vote. More importantly, I ask for your partnership in the critical work ahead. Together, we can fulfill our constitutional duties, stand up to the American people, and build the foundation for a Democratic House majority that truly serves all Americans. Respectfully, Jasmine Crockett, Vice Ranking Member, Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Holy shit. As we search through the haze of leadership and look for people that we could stand behind, to unite behind, that'd be her. Damn. We'll see. We will see. I know other people have expressed interest in running for that position as well. I don't know. I can't see how. I know she has to get it. She has to get it. We'll see. the question is, why doesn't the vice chair become the chair? I don't know. I don't know why that doesn't happen, but like that's some powerful shit right there. That is some powerful shit. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, where it sits, but as part of our conversation today, what should the role of government be? The role of government should be what she described. And it's kind of like the exercise that I went through with you guys, the things that I think are important, protecting public interest, prioritizing. Who votes for her again? Can we call anybody, Steve? Who votes her in again? Well, yeah. So I'll find that out for you guys. I think it may be the committee that votes on this, but it's the Democratic committee because we're talking about the ranking member. So this would come from the minority party in this case. So you guys know how this works because you're the smartest chat in TikTok. The majority, one of the advantages of being in the majority in the House or the Senate for that matter, is that you get to be the chairperson of the various committees. So this would be the ranking member, would be the number two, but the most important voice or the leadership voice of the minority party in this case, right? I think James Comer is the chairperson of the Oversight Committee. And Jasmine Crockett, being the counter to that, would be a massive thorn in his side. Call your reps. Call your representatives. Find out. Call every single one of them. Call them all day, every day. Tell them that you demand that Jasmine Crockett be the ranking member of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Right? Wouldn't that be awesome to have that? Wouldn't it be awesome watching her dog walk MTG? Because MTG sits in that committee as well. Wouldn't that be just amazing? Oh, that would be fucking incredible. Okay. All right. I want to just go, because we talk oftentimes about historical examples. So yes, you guys would do that. Everybody, please keep tapping. Let me just double check over here real quick. Thank you to Marcy for your $4 on Cash App saying, you're inspiring, Steve. Well, I appreciate you saying that. Thank you guys very, very much. We are crowdfunded, so if you want to support the channel, you can do so above. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. And let me just check over here. Eli, thank you for your $4. Two $4 donations. That's weird. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. I appreciate you very, very much. All right. So, I want to go back in time a little bit, and I still don't want to lose focus of what government's role should be. And anybody wants to come up and tell me what they think the government role should be, I'm happy to have that conversation because I'm curious about people's opinions. I've expressed mine all morning, so I would like to hear from you. America, this is from Historic Picks. I found this. There was a plot back in the 30s, and the business plot was a real political conspiracy in 1933 in which wealthy American businessmen allegedly planned to overthrow President Roosevelt and install a fascist-style dictatorship in the United States. The plot aimed to create a veterans organization called the American Liberty League and use it as a front to mobilize 500,000 military veterans to march on D.C. America almost had its own Schmittler in 1933. A group of powerful businessmen, including some of the wealthiest in the U.S., plotted to overthrow the U.S. government, dismantle democracy, and install a military dictator. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It almost happened. Their chosen dictator, Major General Smedley Butler. He was one of the most decorated Marines in the U.S. history. They thought he was popular enough with veterans and the military to lead a coup and take down President Roosevelt. They offered him money, power, control, but they picked the wrong guy. The U.S. was in chaos. It was the middle of the Great Depression. People were starving. Banks were collapsing. Unemployment was sky high. FDR had just taken office in 1932 with a promise to help the working class. To the super rich, this sounded like socialism or worse. Why did they want to overthrow FDR? One word. Want to guess what that word is, everybody? One word. Why did they want to overthrow FDR? One word. Anybody want to take a guess what that word might be? I'll wait. Anybody want to take a guess? Greed? Good guess. Socialism? Good guess. Socialism? Good guess. We talk about it money. Exactly. FDR's New Deal included heavy taxes on the ultra-rich, new labor protections, banking regulations, Social Security, unions getting stronger. Okay? And the billionaire class didn't like that. History rhymes, friends. These tycoons feared losing control of the economy and their fortunes. They didn't care about democracy. They cared about staying rich. The plotters. Some of the biggest names in American business. J.P. Morgan Associates, DuPont family members, executives from General Motors, U.S. Steel, Standard Oil, Goodyear. They believed FDR would, quote, betray their class. So they planned to install a dictator they could control, a puppet with medals. The plan, raise a private army of 500,000 war veterans, march on Washington and force Roosevelt to step aside or become a figurehead. Replace democracy with a fascist regime like Mussolini's Italy. They secured a $3 million war chest, which would equate to about $90 million today, and they quietly recruited. Why Butler? Why Smedley Butler? He was beloved by World War I veterans and had led the bonus army protests. He had spoken out for the poor and against war profiteering. He had credibility with soldiers, and that's what the plotters needed. But Butler had something they didn't expect. A conscience. He pretended to go along, then he blew the whole thing up. Butler went to Congress. He testified under oath before the McCormick-Dickstein Committee in 1934. He had names. He exposed meetings, funding, plans, everything. And Congress found his story credible. The coup was real. What happened to the plotters? Want to take a guess? What happened to the plotters? Anybody want to take a guess what happened to the people that were attempting to overthrow the government? Want to take a guess what happened to them? Nothing. No arrests, no trials, no headlines. The names were buried like mud. The public moved on. Wealth equals protection. Who saved American democracy at that time? A war hero who said no. Smedley Butler called it a conspiracy to seize the government by force. And when asked why he didn't go along, he said this: I believe in democracy. I fought for it. One man stood between us and fascism. Declassified, verified, buried. America came terrifyingly close. Okay? That's why we do it, friends. That's why we do this. That's why we remind people that it doesn't take an army. It takes the voices of many. It takes the actions of many. It takes the voices of one, it takes the actions of one to inspire others. That's how close we came. And there's other examples, too, in our history about coups. I had forgotten about that one until I read it, right? He stood up. He said, again, I believe in democracy. I fought for it. There's too many historical examples that are too close to what we are seeing. So I'm certainly not going to go out on a limb here and call Elon a hero. Not even going there. But the fact that he's now gone public with his view on the big, bold, beautiful pile of shit should tell people a lot, right? Should tell people quite a bit. There are voices out there. We don't need to settle for this shit. We don't need to settle for the chaos. We don't. We can have our Smedley moment, if you will. Okay? All right. A few more things here. This is interesting. This is Maxwell Frost went on Fox recently, being interviewed by Will, I forget his name. You know who he is. You'll recognize the sound. But this is part of the misinformation, disinformation campaign. This is why it's really important to have voices like Jasmine Crockett calling out the bullshit that we see, or Max Frost, who's willing to go around, and sit in these right-wing echo chamber spaces, right? So this is how this interview went. I think this is really interesting. Hold on, let me do this.
Before we move forward, I have to stop down with what you just said. Donald Trump's made a statement about wanting to deport American citizens. Yep. Do you have that in front of you? I've not seen that statement. Can you please quote where that comes from, that he would like to deport American citizens?
He said it in the Oval Office. He said he wants to go for homegrown snacks, people born and raised in the United States. Citizens.
Do you have anything?
And then
do you have anything besides your word on that? I have
anything besides your word on that? Okay.
Not seen. I have not seen that. So beyond your word, do you have the source of that? I would love to see that clip or that transcript of him saying he wants to deport American citizens.
In the same meeting, President Trump also floated deporting U.S. citizens.
We also have homegrown criminals, and I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that.
Before the meeting, Trump can be heard on a live stream shared by the Salvadoran president's team. Trump telling Bukele he may need more prisons.
Homegrowns are next.
Homegrowns.
You got to build about 5 more places. Great guy.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the homegrowns.
The
ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see happening sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
Sure. We're just going to double down on that, right? So this is an example. Yeah, proud homegrown right here too. This is one of the examples, like we've discussed many, many times, of just the blatant gaslighting. He had to know that audio existed, right? So you attempt to put Max Frost on the spot, put him in a gotcha moment, only to have the entire thing blow up in your face. Funny how that happens when you're lying to people, when you can't keep your lies straight. Okay. All right, so again, as we know, the big, bold, beautiful, beach blonde, bad-built, butch body, beautiful bill barreling its way through the, I can't do alliterations like Eve can, barreling its way through Congress. It's now in the Senate. And just as a reminder, MTG had come out publicly and said, I didn't realize that there was something in this bill because I didn't read that part. Any changes made, you guys know how this works, any changes made, any change the Senate makes to the House version means it would have to go back to the House. So we'll see if she's credible. But one of the things that we know is in the bill is cuts to 10% cut to the agencies, Commerce and Energy, who control the Medicaid budget. The only way they can cut 10% is to cut Medicaid. So the lie that they've been telling you is that they're just going to kick the illegals off, which the illegals don't get it now. Okay, we know this. This is part of the lie. So this was Mike Johnson talking about it, right? Okay, here you go. This is nuts.
Understanding what we're actually doing, Greta, is securing Medicaid. We're shoring it up. We're going to make sure that these essential programs are there for the people who genuinely need and deserve it. What Medicaid is intended, remember, as a safety net for young pregnant mothers and the elderly and the disabled and vulnerable populations, not for able-bodied young men without dependents. Those are the kinds of people we're taking off the program, the illegal aliens who are on the program. And we're going to root out fraud, waste, and abuse, and that's where the savings are going to be found. So we're actually making the program stronger for the Americans who need it.
Listen to that again, please.
Understanding what we're actually doing, Greta, is securing Medicaid. We're shoring it up. We're going to make sure that these essential programs are there for the people who genuinely need and deserve it. What Medicaid is intended, remember, as a safety net for young pregnant mothers and the elderly and the disabled and vulnerable populations, not for able-bodied young men without dependents.
Okay, so that right there, right, because I pay attention to these things. First of all, again, undocumented immigrants do not receive Medicaid benefits unless it's under emergency care, and that accounts to 1% of all spending in 2023-2024. There are 14 states in our country that do offer protections, but for pregnant people and children. So the Republican administration, the conservatives, the fascists like Mike Johnson, have been lying to you all along, saying we're only taking off illegals. And then he references the fact that, there might be young men out there who are able-bodied, who are taking care of it. Who makes that determination? Who makes that determination? I want us to keep talking about this. Proletariat came up yesterday and reminded us that there are 41 million Americans who receive SNAP benefits. 41 million. As we went through the exercise on the Project 2025 tracker, we know, for example, that one of the elements of, let's see if I can find it here. Hold on. I do have that, I think. Maybe I don't. Oh, yeah. Really fast. Anywho, we know that 41 million people who receive SNAP benefits in our country, and we know that those people are going to be subjected to losing their benefits. So this is part of the lie. This is part of the gaslight. Can you imagine? Can you imagine Mike when he and his son are checking on each other's corn viewership as they're each other's accountability partner, as he's, maybe he's praying the pain away, as he's kneeling as the penitent man before God every single night, attempting to receive forgiveness for the lies he tells every single day. Louisiana, one of the poorest states in our country, millions of people in his state receive Medicare, Medicaid benefits. Are all of them subjected to fraud, waste, fraud, and abuse? Are all of them perpetrating crimes? Is he the arbiter? Is he the person responsible to tell people that, hey, by the way, I think you should get a job? Part of a progressive healthcare system in our country would be to acknowledge that mental health is also a serious issue. So it doesn't matter if you're 6'2", 195 and you're fit. You could have some serious issues that keep you from working. You could be a small business owner who is struggling to make ends meet, who could potentially be, in that area where you make too much for benefits, you don't make enough to be able to afford private insurance, so you depend on Medicare. It's just the cruelty's the point. I don't know how else to say it. Good morning, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
Well, first off, I listen often. I love what you do, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
But I think I've come up before. I don't remember. But hi, I'm a physician. I work as a hospitalist or an internal medicine physician.
I remember talking to you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, I work in Oklahoma, so another red state, poor state. 25% of our population's on Medicaid. And one thing that I think that they have kind of scooched into this big bastard bill that I think is getting less coverage is that it threatens the 501c3 status of nonprofit organizations if they're found to be in violation of, I don't have the wording in front of me, but it's like in violation of the administration's policies on like cooperating with illegal immigrants as well as, undocumented immigrants, as well as DEI practices. And so essentially what they're doing is attempting to hold hospitals and schools at gunpoint, you know what I mean, hostage.
Yeah, it's fine. I got you.
Essentially saying, we'll take away your nonprofit status if you just don't do what we tell you to do. And that's one of the things that they kind of just snuck into this bill that I think is very heinous and just very insidious, because the focus obviously is on the cuts, but then there's these other pieces that they've kind of glommed on there that also attack from a different angle, because sure, the cuts don't happen, but then this happens. Well, okay, we heard your hospital is giving care to illegal immigrants at a higher rate than we'd like, so actually you're not a nonprofit anymore, which greatly affects all of the providers, nurses, and doctors that work in that hospital who rely on, say, like public service loan forgiveness and the like, which, I mean, I'm sure is the next thing to go. Don't get me wrong, but it is just an added thing that they're coming at it from all angles, which is just, I think, heinous.
I agree.
Yeah. Not to mention, there was another bill that I had seen that they had put onto the agenda, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It was like HR 3518. I mentioned it in the comments earlier that essentially says that if we find that graduate institutions are not in compliance with our DEI or anti-DEI stance, essentially mentioning race, inequality, and the like, that we will go after their ability for their students to get, loan or student assistance of all kinds, which as a medical provider, I'm not saying that a huge portion of our studies focused on that, but I will say that there are definitely times where you have to think of, is this person male, female? Is this person a certain race? Will they have a better response to a certain therapy? Hell, OBGYNs are an entire medical field. And to just say that medical schools shouldn't talk about an entire, relevant topic, or else their students can't get federal loans is just literally insane to me. I've seen it mentioned in some physician spaces the past couple of days, and it's just like, besides everything else going on, all the other loan caps and all of the other stuff, it's just.
Yeah, I think, and I'm curious from your perspective. Obviously, it makes it difficult for you to do your job. First of all, like we talk about our system where there's a person like you who's a physician, then we have your patient over here, and then ideally we would have like a straight line as close to straight as possible to care, but because we've got everybody's hand in the cookie jar, so to speak, this is the administrative nightmare, and then you've got laws that go into effect. You've got trigger laws. You've got whether or not you're going to be punished for treating somebody who's undocumented. It's just this is. Somebody says the cruelty is the point. I guess that's the best way to say it. Like the cruelty is the point. The lies. People's lives are impacted by this stuff. I know you talk about in your state. We also know about how they want to change education in your state, and they want to introduce, a theocratic education into public schools, and they want to tell people. And this is not judging someone's religion, but it's just I first of all, I appreciate the work that you do, obviously, but I find it just cruel. I don't know how else to say it. It's just cruel.
Yeah, no, I hear it said around, and I feel like I tend to agree at this point, but it almost feels like cruelty is the point, I've reached out to both my senators. I have no faith in Lankford or Mullins. But I've me and some other physicians I know who are all concerned have essentially said, like, hey, you need to really look at this and think about what you're doing, because you're putting the lives of 25% of your constituents at risk. And it's not like hyperbole. 25% of Oklahoma relies on Medicaid, Sooner Care, and it is not. There is no joke or myth or whatever they want to make about securing it against undocumented immigrants, because it's just not. I work with social workers in the hospital. I've helped with applications for Medicare, for community care, for various things for people. And I had a patient within the past year, without being, HIPAA or anything, who was undocumented, who needed cancer treatment, who I essentially had to really search for a way to help, because we don't provide, Medicare, Medicaid to these people, and without, scraping the bottom of the barrel and really finding a way, this person was just going to die of cancer. And it's just
right, with the exception of emergency room care, right? Because I know that you have to Hippocratic oath, you have to treat people, right? With the exception of emergency room, right? Yeah. So
right. And again, though, that doesn't fall under Medicaid or Medicare, though. That's just they came in, they were dying, I stopped them from dying, they still get a bill. It's not like the bill just goes away.
I know. Exactly.
And that's the thing that really drives me crazy, is some people act like I just go, oh, they're undocumented. Well, it's free. Obviously, it's duh. And that's simply not how it works.
I know. Michael, I appreciate the work that you do, sir, and I really appreciate you coming back. And we've spoken before, so please keep us posted on how things are going in your state. And again, as a reminder, Michael's made the decision to call his senators. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do the same. Remind them what's at stake, because people's lives depend on it. Thank you for being here, Michael. I appreciate you. Have a good day.
Absolutely.
See you later.
Hey, you have a good day. I appreciate you, man.
You too. Thanks. I appreciate that. Real-time example, right? People out there doing their job, keeping people alive. And we've got fascists in our government who are like, I would like to think, again, this may be the idyllic empath in me. I'd like to think that people who are voting in support of these bills are not waking up every single morning saying, I'm out to intentionally harm people who are on Medicaid. Some probably are, right? I mean, some probably are, but I'd like to think that people are just so lost in their political expediency and access to power that they'll just vote for whatever. We know that there are people that are not reading the bill, right? So then we have people that are making decisions for the rest of us medically who are lying to you as well. Case in point, RFK. This is interesting.
You have gained notoriety for your skepticism about vaccines. And over the summer in an interview, you said, quote, there's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. Do you still believe that?
I never said that.
So stop me. We have the clip. Please play the clip.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. I see somebody on a hiking trail carrying a little baby, and I say to him, better not get him vaccinated. And he heard that from me. If he hears it from 10 other people, maybe he won't do it. Maybe he will save that child.
Maybe he will save that child. You think preventing vaccine?
That is how the media needs to handle this, right? Why is it that Felice and I and RTP and others, we play clips? I want more of that. Like, you can't just let them run away from it. We know who RFK Jr. is. We know that he said these things. And in an attempt to save face, that's what they're going to do? They're just going to double down on their lies, I guess, right? I mean, dude, come on. Yeah, call it out to their face, right to their fucking face. Right to their face. If anybody wants to sponsor me to have, to expand the YouTube show, I will invite people on and I will throw them in the fucking trash can. No, you lied. You're a fucking liar. Sorry, but you're a liar. And this is why you're a liar. Which is why, again, although I haven't for the past couple of weeks, I got to get my press credentials. It's got to happen. There's no way in hell. It's in my fantasy world with a brand new suit, fresh haircut, new shoes. There's no way in hell that I would ever get past the scrutiny of my questions. I would lie. I might even get an American flag handkerchief and an American flag pin and attempt to say, oh, I'm here because I believe in free voices for all Americans. But all they would have to do would be to look at my social profile and not let me ask a question. But if I was in that press room, I would just be like, Caroline, I noticed you're not wearing your cross today. Are you planning on lying? I don't think that would go over too well. But how great would that be? Oh, you're wearing your cross today. So should we assume that the lies won't be too bad? Can I see, is there a burn mark in the shape of a cross on your chest? I'm just wondering. In my head, that's what happened. But right, it would again, I'll continue to try. I've got my representative trying to help me out just to see if I can get in there. Even if there's like a dull moment, right? Like if there's a quiet moment and she's answering a question, I'd be like, Caroline, hey, how's it going? Yeah, in my head. Anyway, I'll try. Okay, so I want to play this too. This is an example. Speaking of Caroline, recent headline from the Washington Post recently about a mysterious decline in fentanyl arrests, right? And I want you to hear the language. It's one thing to address the data. It's the language in which they use, because again, I believe in a government working would be full transparency. The role the government should play should be transparent, accountable, and responsible in regards to how they communicate with their citizenry. So this is what she had to say in addressing that. KKK Caroline.
Washington Post just ran one of the most ridiculous headlines ever, even by their standard. The mysterious drop in fentanyl seizures on the U.S.-Mexico border. How is this mysterious? There is no mystery serious. There is no mystery about why there is a decrease in fentanyl coming into the United States. This administration's strong border policies are the reason there has been a decrease in fentanyl trafficking. His strengthened relationship with Mexican President Sheinbaum and all of the measures he has been taking to deter illegal human and drug trafficking at our United States southern border is the reason for plummeting fentanyl seizures. There is nothing mysterious about that, and we'd like to see the Washington Post update their headline accordingly.
That part right there. We would like to see the Washington Post change their headline. We would like to tell a news agency in the United States of America that has freedom of the press to change the headline because we don't like it. But what about Biden? Fucking what? What, Caroline? What? Okay, got a couple more. Let's see. I played that one for you. This is another interview with RFK, since we're still talking about this transparency. We're not going to let him off the hook because of the horrible things that he has said. We're not going to let him off the hook. So this is when he's talking about, this is another resurfaced clip. This is a resurfaced clip being interviewed by John Stossel and how he truly feels about vaccines.
If your kids were young now, would you give them the measles, the mumps vaccine?
No. I got measles, mumps when I was a kid. It was
lots of people used to die from those diseases.
Well, you know what? They died in the 1900s or early 1900s. There were about 10,000 Americans a year died.
What? I'm sorry, what? Okay, I would not. The anti-vax skeptics, when they try to make a point about something, they don't understand. Well, I'm not even going to go there because that's a dangerous topic on TikTok. F1 in the chat. Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm going to use this opportunity here just to remind folks one more time, in case you're just joining us, if you haven't joined us this week. If you just found us, hello, I'm Fax, Steve. Hold on. Wait, I even have sound effect for that. I'm Steve. We're here every Monday through Friday, 8 till noon Eastern time, and oftentimes we do Facts After Dark, either on an evening Friday night or sometimes over the weekend. If you've not found us before, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please consider heart meeting, set your notifications so you can see us. Like I said, every Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to noon Eastern time. You want to support the channel, you can do so a variety of ways, either by subscribing, tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring. We are crowdfunded, so if you want to support the channel, you can do so right there. So as another reminder, friends, my kid is instead of band is called Punch. They entered this contest for this event called Beats for Good. It's part of the Do Good Festival that happens in Montpelier, Vermont in mid-July. A couple years ago, they introduced this program called Beats for Good, which gives high school musicians, bands, singer-songwriters an opportunity to open the concert, headlined this year by The Fray and by the Plain White Tees. If you go to the link tree in my bio, you'll see this. It's called the voting form. You open that up, you'll get a list of the bands. My daughter's band is Punch. Please vote for them. Voting closes on Friday. I would be so psyched to find out that her band gets to open this show. And the reason, not only would that be cool, but this was last year's crowd. They got 11,000 people there, and people show up early because there's a massive food tent craft fair. There's a beer garden, and my gosh, how awesome would it be? Stage is down here. 11,000 people in a beautiful spot. Can you imagine? And by the way, if you go to the Punch video, my kid is the blonde-haired beauty in the front singing her lungs out. So there you go. Yes, you can vote every single day. You can vote more than once a day if you have a different email address. I'm not suggesting that you do that with a different email address. I'm just saying that's something that could happen. So please vote Punch. Thank you. Okay, back to this. I think I saw a guest request. I did not. All right. Let me see. That's the ridiculous headline.
Skepticism about.
Played that one. Played that. Okay. Linda McMahon, since we're talking about what should the government's role be, I believe that education should be an absolute priority in a government of and by and for the people, and the role of government would be to provide access. I'm a firm believer in public education should be free. higher education. So this is Linda McMahon, and I'm going to unpack the dribble that comes out of her mouth in this in this interview. But there's so much to listen to here, sadly. So here's Linda.
For having me today to represent the goal I share with my boss, President Trump, to responsibly eliminate the federal bureaucracy, cut waste, and give education back to states, parents, and educators.
Hope.
With your partnership, the fiscal 26 budget will take a significant step toward that goal. We seek to shrink federal bureaucracy, save taxpayer money, and empower states who best know their local needs to manage their education in this country. We have reviewed our programs and identified spending that does not fulfill the mandate of trust the American people have placed with President Trump. We have cut old contracts that waste enriching private parties at taxpayer expense, suspended grants for illegal DEI programs, and now are putting forward a responsible budget request that reduces department funding by more than 15%. At the same time, we're working to make American education great again. In our conversations with governors, teachers, and parents across the country, we hear calls for accountability and more local control. That's our goal, to give parents access to the quality education their kids deserve, to fix the broken higher education industry that has misled students into degrees that don't pay off, and to create safe learning environments. We're holding institutions to account when they facilitate discriminatory or hostile environments on campus. A level playing field with limitless opportunity, I think, is a vision that we all can share. Our budget reflects this vision. Its cuts reflect a bureaucracy that is getting out of the way, and its continuations and increases represent smart spending that will help improve student achievement and not serve bureaucratic interests. Our goal is clear. Make education better, fairer, and more accountable by ending federal overreach and empowering families, schools, and states who best know the needs of their students. I'm eager to partner with you to make the vision of the future a reality and to ensure every child is part of it. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay. Let's try to be objective for just a moment, shall we? People in our country, who wrote the speech, wasn't me, I can tell you that. People in our country, first of all, do not know how the Department of Education works. By and large, what the Department of Education does is its civil rights protections and in defending people who've been discriminated against in public education. Also provides resources and funding to support special needs programs in public schools across the country. 529 plans, those kinds of programs, IEPs, etc., and access to federal student loans. That's primary. It's not about curriculum, okay? And this is the part. This one really stings me, right? My fists are clenched. This one really stings because this is one of those things that I believe in how a government could function properly and why it's necessary for government to invest in public education, right? 504 plans. Thank you. Appreciate that. Got my numbers all screwed up. Linda McMahon attempting to justify a 15%, a $12 billion reduction, which is 15%, which would basically cut out support for those programs. We already know that public educators in our country are under assault. We already know the lie that has been told by people like her that say charter schools and or school choice is the option. That is one of the biggest and most dangerous lies told to the American people yet during this current administration. Because that's not an option for families. It's not an option for parents, right? The Department of Education does not set curriculum. The Department of Education does not determine what books are in classrooms. The Department of Education provides support because so many impoverished communities, right, they don't have the resources to pay their teachers, never mind their special educators. Yeah, you're right. That's the A1 lady. Exactly, Billy. They don't have those programs. Last time I checked, students and children with special needs are not just children of libs in blue states. Children who are on 504 plans are not just woke radical leftist kids. Children who require support services in schools are not just the kids of communists. They're everyday Americans in every zip code across the country. Every single one. I want to go back to the speech that I wrote on this topic. Where is it? True freedom isn't the absence of government, it's the presence of justice. It's knowing you can go to the doctor without going bankrupt. It's your kids getting a great education no matter their zip code. So like we say a lot, right? Those of us on the left who believe in these kinds of things care more about the kids in these communities, in these hardcore 60-plus voting Trump communities than they do. I don't want to sacrifice one kid. I want them all to have access to the best education. I don't care, because children are the innocent victims in this, right? I don't care. I don't care where your kid lives. I don't care what community you live in. I don't care who your family voted for. I don't care who you voted for. I care that your kid has access to programs and support services that they need. I care that your kid, MAGA wearer, I care that your kid has access to free breakfast and free lunch if they need it. I care that people in your community have access to EBT and or SNAP benefits if necessary. Why don't you? Why don't you? Why don't you care about those things? Why aren't you the one that's out there fighting for these kinds of things in your community? I can then form an opinion, right? I can then say, well, if your YT kid gets this stuff, then brown-skinned people will as well, and that's a bridge too far for you, right? How many times has Brett Cross had these conversations to say to people, would you be willing to sacrifice your 2A rights if you know it could protect one kid? And they say, nope. So why would we expect them to support public education, right? Linda McMahon gaslighting the American public. And again, it's easy to say. So think of this objectively. You know what? We just want to make sure that the state and communities and parents can make that education decisions for their kid. That sounds great. That sounds great. The problem is we have examples, overwhelmingly red states who perform horribly when it comes to public education, whose states are already underfunded now, whose states are already dependent on the federal government for subsidies. Where the fuck is the money going to come from? Have people on the right, if there's any MAGA in here, if you guys believe in the getting rid of the Department of Education, have you thought that through? Like, if you thought that through, how kids with special needs in your communities would have access to public education, which they're guaranteed now? I mean, have you thought that through a little bit? Have you just allowed yourself to be told that the Department of Education is like blah, blah, blah? Yeah, we can say you don't care, but do you know? Have you thought about it enough? Do you know that this Gen X progressive lefty who lives in the communist haven of Vermont cares more about your kid than you do? Do you know that? Do you know that the nearly 500, 700,000 people that are in here on the daily, that we care more about your kids than you do? That we care more about your kids' access to clean air and clean water than you do? That we care more about your kid being protected from firearm violence than you do? Do you know that we care that your kid eats? Do we care more than you do about that? Do you know that? Have you thought that through? Yeah, you're right. It does not exist, Jess. It does not. Vermont does not exist. Right? You're right. So you have 0 kids and you support education. Because we, the collective, we, the people, domestic tranquility, life, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Why is that? Why is it that we care more about your kids than you do? It's not. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be a controversial conversation to say that I want my government to guarantee. Holy shit! It should not be political, and it should be not radical to say I want my government to guarantee that every single child in our country can eat every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and even goldfish snacks mid-afternoon. It should not be complicated. It should not be controversial. It's certainly not radical. It's certainly not a situation where we can be accused of being these commie pinkos. It's fucking kids. They deserve to be taught. Teachers need to be provided with all the tools they need, all the resources that they need, everything. There should not be a family in our country that should have to worry about feeding their kid, educating their child, guaranteeing that that family has access to clean water, clean air, housing, and health care. Why is it so hard to grasp that concept? Because you know what? The majority of the impoverished communities in our country, rural communities, voted for the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon who is now bragging about 24-karat gold accents in the White House, in the Oval Office. What is wrong with you people? What is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're right, it's bizarre, right, Gen X? It's so fucking bizarre that, you want to talk about, yes, the left, we are indoctrinating your children, because we want them to understand that they deserve health care, that they deserve a high quality education, free and affordable. They deserve to eat. They deserve it. Try to make it make sense, right? Make it make sense. Why would you? Okay. All right, let's play this sound. It's just frustrating to me that we have to. You're right. It's maddening. It is so. Listen, why has this become a political issue? Why? Why is feeding children political? I don't get it. How can that be a political conversation? I don't understand it. I know that I'm an empath. We talk about this all the time. But even if you're not an empath, how can feeding children be controversial? Why is not every single constituent in every single district across the country demanding that absolutely do not cut SNAP benefits? Do not cut them. Don't. In fact, you know what? I would like you to cut 25% from the military budget and expand SNAP. So there's never a doubt. So there's never a doubt in anyone's mind that every kid in our country, every child, from Maine to Alaska and everywhere in between, is guaranteed the ability to eat every day. I'm not talking about buying them PlayStation 5s. I'm not talking about their minutes on their phone. I'm talking about food. Clean water, lead-free. Why is that so hard? Good point, Black Eye. $100 million for Trump's parade? How many meals would that provide? What the fuck is the matter with you people? Like, you guys know me. This shit just bothers me. It like makes my skin crawl. Okay, I'll play a little sound from Mr. Ducey.
How mad do you think President Trump is going to be when he finds out that Elon Musk said, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it."
Look, the president already knows where Elon Musk stood on this bill. It doesn't change the president's opinion. This is one big, beautiful bill, and he's sticking to it. Cameron.
Okay. Like, okay, sure. You know, it is funny, though, that there's so many people that are just like, you know, any opportunity they can to kind of distance themselves from Elon when all they did was to cheer Elon on from day one. So I found this story as well. So there's a lot of people on the right that are really angry. Remember how we talked about, you guys may recall this, we went through this exercise yesterday about Palantir, right? Palantir is this Peter Thiel fueled finance organization that now has access to all of our data. Basically, it's the watchdog, it's the spy network initiated by the Trump administration to literally have access to all of our data as Americans, right? The party that says freedom and liberty, get the government out of my business, are now supporting this. There's been a lot of pushback from a lot of people on the right. Can I do what? Can I make too much? Yeah, you're right, Carol. I make too much sense. Just to land the plane, specifically on this, we're talking about kids. We're talking about feeding children. You know, you can miss me, my friend Manda. If you're in the chat, Manda, love you, friend. She did this talk about pro-life, right? So taking back the pro-life label, right? We care about kids. We care about making sure that they can fucking eat. Food. Come on, friends and enemies. Food for kids. You know, maybe we should let them wear that collar. Maybe that's the argument, right? I know people talk about healthcare. I know people talk about education. And I know that there are some prominent Democrats that are out there really starting to flex their muscles and talk about those kinds of things. Maybe it's food. Why do you support starving children? Why do you support forcing kids to starve? Or how to say that better? Why do you believe that we should be taking food out of the mouths of kids? Right? I'm going to work on that. Okay, so we're talking about the Palantir conversation. There's a lot of right-wing voices that we know publicly that are really pushing back on this whole Palantir thing. So the Hodge twins on Twitter, I don't know if this is true. It is true, Palantir, but I did not vote for this. The story is Trump has tapped Palantir to create a master database on every American. And this person says, don't know if this is true, but I did not vote for this. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Nicholas J. Fuentes. Nick Fuentes. Trump's promotion of Palantir is the ultimate betrayal of his own people. Feeding every MAGA extremist into an AI database controlled by a CIA Mossad cutout. Seriously, if Palantir isn't the deep state, then what is? The Patriot Voice. People are so quick to suggest that I flipped on Trump. No. I didn't flip on Trump. Trump flipped on us. I'm not just willing to continue living in a lie, and I will tell you the unfortunate truth about it. I love that part. I didn't flip on Trump. Trump flipped on us. From Tom Renz. This appears both true and scary. Love Trump, but this is terrible. Wow, they're angry. Redneck Common Sense, also on X. I'm beginning to think it started when DJT walked down that escalator before 2016. Oh, no. Dark MAGA, HQ. Maybe it's time we rise up and remove Trump now. He is refusing to arrest anyone. He is refusing to release the Epstein list. He's He is building this now, it seems. Man is dangerously close to a traitor at this point, sadly. Oh, no. Really? 210M. If this is going to be a centralized platform of American civilians and tracks them, then yeah, we're going to have issues with this. They already have information on all of us, but I did not vote for this either. At Real Donald Trump, this is not what we voted for, and it is not something consistent with MAGA. I'm very disappointed in your choice here, sir. Holy shit. FAFO. What? People are just finding out that he's a fascist? Really? God, I had no idea. What else have I got for you? Oh, this is interesting. Everybody's going to make their own decisions as to how they want to approach the future. Whether they decide to stay in America, whether they in the United States, whether they decide to leave, it's a personal choice. It comes from a place of privilege. I think people will need to be able to accept that. If people are in a position to be able to do that, then that is privilege. Okay. Many people, especially in marginalized groups who are the ones that are under assault every single day, may not be in that position. Okay. I'll share this story with you. With that being said, okay, Kevin and Jessica Salura had just 48 hours in December to make an enormous family decision. The couple, who both work as teachers, had to decide if they should take a job offer to teach in Morocco and leave Asheville, North Carolina, with their two youngest children. The Salaruses say their decision was made easier by the presidential election results just weeks earlier. We will get away from the chaos. I feel like America, as we knew growing up, is slipping away pretty fast. The Solaris are part of a growing stampede of Americans moving or making serious efforts to move abroad or to obtain the citizenship rights that would allow them to do so. Tax lawyers and immigration advisors told CNN they have seen an uptick in requests from Americans seeking help with navigating the complex web of guidelines needed to relocate since Trump's election win. Jessica, 40, Kevin, 52, told reporters that they are unaffiliated voters. They cast their ballots for Democrat Kamala Harris in last year's presidential election, though Kevin voted Republican in the 90s. Their problems with the second Trump administration go well beyond the usual policy tussles and fierce disputes. I feel like the government that we have is not based in reality. Yeah, no shit. It is based in propaganda. Yeah, no shit. Citing the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol, inspired by Trump's repeated false claims that former President Biden had rigged the proceedings. Trump's reascension provided the spark the couple needed to fulfill a long-standing desire to move overseas. They are set to teach at a school in Morocco's capital, Rabat, that follows the American model of education. They have one-way plane tickets that they purchased on August 10th. Official data from on April 10th. Official data from the UK, Ireland, and Canada. Hold on. What's that? Official data from the UK, Ireland, and Canada show a surge in the number of Americans applying to become citizens, despite in recent months. More than 1,900 applied for a British passport during the first quarter of 2025. We shouldn't be surprised by this, right? Again, people are going to make up their own mind. People are, and I'm not going to judge you. When I do have a problem, though. I want to be very, very careful how I say this. I'm going to think this through. People that chose not to vote in the most recent presidential election, especially people who are in a marginalized community, people who chose not to vote and are now leaving, I have a problem with that. Okay? I understand individual circumstances are different, but people who chose not to participate are now packing up and leaving. I have a problem with that. And it's going to be difficult for me to square. I also have a problem with people who are, especially white men in America. I am at the pinnacle of privilege. I'm not leaving, friends. I'm not leaving. I feel like, I've had conversations with my daughter. By the way, I'll share this funny story with you. She took she didn't have a free period her entire junior year in high school. Okay. Not one. All of her friends did. She chose to take 3 advanced placement classes, and she didn't have any free periods. She's acquired enough credit to graduate in a week and a half. She's not going to. She wants to graduate with her class. She got her schedule for next year, and she's got like 5 free periods. So I share that with you because it's just kind of funny. Anyway, long story short, she and I have had this might like to go to school. Okay. She might decide to go to school overseas. She had that incredible trip to France that she just absolutely loved. We've talked about this. I'm not in a financial position to leave. That's for sure. I'm not in my headspace is not there because I think there's a lot to fight for. And like we always say, I would be a hypocrite if I said, hey, I'm fighting for others. When things get bad, it's not bad for me. I can assimilate anywhere. I'm a white guy in America in his 50s. I'm smart. I'm well educated. I've got skills, funny, charming. Some would say handsome. I'm kidding. Whatever. I can assimilate anywhere. I can fit into any cycle. And I want to use my privilege to make changes in our country. Not everybody is in that position. I get it. People are going to have to make their own choices. People are going to have to make their own decisions about that. But I guess I would ask you, if you represent a marginalized group and you didn't participate in our last election and now you're going to pack up and leave. So you're leaving people behind in your community because you're privileged to leave, and then you're going to blame everybody else for you not participating? That's weird. State to state, sure, I can see that. I can see people leaving their state. Absolutely. That makes sense. But, it's just a weird thing. And I want to caution people from just making those decisions. Make sure that you're not making it. If you're making it, make sure you're making it for the right reasons. Okay. Okay, I've got a little more sound that I'll play for you. What time is it? Okay, here we go. This is Josh Hawley. This is an interesting exchange. Like I said earlier, I had to wash out my mouth when I said that Marjorie Taylor Greene was transparent and said that she would not have voted for this bill. Josh Hawley lately has surprised me a little bit. Because, primarily he's been going after corporate CEOs a lot, right? He's really been going after the wealth gap. He's been really going after their greed. This is an interesting exchange because, we'll talk about it. I just think it's funny because of the way in which he says it. He almost walks into the point. Let me do this. Hold on.
Trump came into office for the first time. Now, you don't think this is a little chart, the Trump chart, which was done really only once Trump came into office for the first time. Now, you don't think this is a little bit anomalous? You don't think that's a little bit strange?
A very plausible explanation, Senator, you have to consider is that he is engaged in much more lawless activity than other presidents, right?
You don't think
you must
this was never
possibility.
used before the 1960s, and suddenly Democrat judges decide we love the nationwide injunction, and then when Biden comes to office, no. Actually,
it's Republican appointees as well, Senator, and the 1960s is where some scholars locate the beginning of this, but others.
Before then?
Mila Sahoni, who's another scholar of universal injunction, suggests 1913 is actually the first. There were others in the 20s.
The Republic endured for 150 years before the nationwide injunction.
Well, the federal government was doing a lot.
So the point is, he was showing a chart about how injunctions being imposed on the Trump administration, and his argument was, well, why is this happening to Trump? It's not happening to Biden. And she clearly pointed out it's because he's the one that's violating the Constitution. Right? It's just like, bro, you walked into the point. And many people are now. You're starting to see it more and more. You're starting to see more and more people on the right kind of walking into the point a little bit. It is Kate Shaw. She is brilliant. Big crush on Kate Shaw. Oh, sorry. Brains, me and brains. Point is that, he wasn't even arguing. He wasn't arguing against the fact that there was this massive disparity between injunctions imposed against Mr. Trump compared to other presidents. He was just saying, hey, call it out. And she's like, yeah, it's because what he's doing is unconstitutional. It's the same argument that we have. The reason I share that is because it's the same argument we have with people who say that it's weaponization, right? It's weaponization of the judicial. It's weaponization of government. Well, listen, if you've got two people and one drives the speed limit every single day, and one doesn't, and the one that doesn't keeps getting tickets, you can't claim that is weaponization of law enforcement. That's just you with a lead foot. And daughter, if you're listening, I'm speaking to you. Just saying. So that's an example, right? So that to me is kind of epitomizes part of the conversation, right? Like we can't. Not everything is weaponization of government. Not everything is the corrupt judiciary. The fact that executive orders and attempts to use, the Alien Enemy Act or IEPA when you don't have an emergency requires judicial review, and when the judge rules against you, that's not weaponization. Maybe stop being such a fucking dumbass. Maybe stop being a criminal. Maybe that might be good. Anyway, I have a couple more things that I want to get to today. Let's see. Where is this one? Everybody, let's bring us home. We're only at 2:27, friends. We've been going at this for 4 hours. My mouth is tired. But let's listen. This is as well. It's more sound, right? This is a weird conversation. So he was talking about drug companies, and then it went way off the rails. So this was on Friday. I don't know if you guys heard this, but this is really strange.
They will fight the drug companies. The drug companies are very worried that they're going to fight, and that's okay. If they fight, we'll just say, that's okay. We are not going to let you sell any more cars into the United States, or we're not going to let you sell any more wine or liquor or alcohol or something that's actually much more important to them than the drugs. And we're going to be able to force that issue if we need to. They should do it. We're basically equalizing. They should do it. And, the drug companies should do just as well. This shouldn't be a hit on their stock. I don't think it will be. It's basically, it's going to be the same amount of money, but it's going to be redistributed. And it's going to be redistributed, so they're going to pay a little bit more, and we're going to pay a lot less. A little bit more because there's so many more. It's a bigger number.
What?
China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain. I know words. I have the best words, but there's no better word than stupid.
So I don't even know what the fuck he was talking about. He's got the best words, right? He's suggesting that he can tell drug companies, we're not going to let you sell any more cars. I don't remember the Pfizer-built Coupe de Ville. I don't remember Moderna's Mustang. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Like, what? Some people choose not to play his sound, but I don't know. As a reminder, we have to just point this kind of stuff out because he is losing his fucking mind that he hasn't lost it already. Wow. That was nuts. Good morning, my friend. How are you today?
Morning. I am wonderful.
Good.
So, I listened to that, and I wanted to do an experiment. So I read something to a panel that I was on, and I read what Donald Trump said, and they were like, "What? That made no sense."
Yeah.
I said, "Do you know who said that?" It wasn't me who said that. That was not that was Donald Trump. And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah. I don't get how the normal person can listen to that conversation and take anything away from the topic at hand.
Because it's the weave. He's just doing the weave.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all.
I mean, my dad has onset dementia, and he makes more sense than him. I'm like, But
I think to your point, this is why I'll play this. This explains a lot. So this right here is exactly what we're talking about. Here you go.
So we have the worst education almost in the large world, the world that people know about.
There you go.
Oh my God. And he runs our country. And he runs our country, people. Oh my God, Steve. I'm like, that
one always gets me.
You do the work. I'm like, I couldn't have the stamina to find this crap.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate you, friend, as always. Anything else on your mind?
Nope. Just I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you.
People, stay in and fight for this country. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but we got to stay and fight. And if you're the cowardice that didn't want to vote, bye.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel a little bit too. But I appreciate you saying that, friend. Thank you for being here. You have a good rest of your day. All right, talk to you soon.
You too.
Be well.
Bye.
Take care. All right, a few more pieces of sound. So I've played James O'Brien before. He is on LBC Radio. He's a Brit, and I want to just play this because I really like his perspective on things. I like the way he's a very no nonsense kind of guy. He's on LBC, and this is in regards to the crypto scheme. I don't know why this is not covered more by the mainstream legacy media. This is blatant corruption. This is, the argument that the right likes to use. Oh, well, he donated his salary. Yeah, he's a generous guy. He donated his salary. Well, what about the fact that he made $2.9 billion on crypto? Well, that's nothing. That's just cost of doing business. He's all right. He's a businessman. Yeah, but you don't understand the fact that, you said he donated his salary, but he's made $2.9 billion in the presidency on this crypto scheme. Yeah, that don't matter. What about Biden? Okay, so this is this is James O'Brien talking about this topic.
Never mind the judges, never mind the fascism, never mind the laws. For Trump and his closest family and cronies, it's all about the Benjamins.
It's all about the money. I mean, and it is completely unprecedented. We've never seen personal enrichment like this. Trump and his family made $2.9 billion out of one thing, the meme coin that he and Melania launched in the days leading up to the inauguration. They got out of it in time. They pocketed the money. 764,000 Americans lost everything that they put into the meme coin. And that's just one area of enrichment. If you look at the recent travel to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, it was preceded by travel to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE by Donald Trump Jr., who was signing business deals all over the region for the Trump organization.
$2.9 billion, right? Hello, buddy. $2.9 billion. Okay. Don't forget one of the biggest. This is weird. I never really thought about it this way. When you're able to convince 77 million people to vote for you in the first place, and now to have those people even still be willing to double down after what he did with this crypto scheme. Like, can you imagine? Ask yourself this question, okay? And we are the legacy media and mainstream media is to blame for this. Ask yourself this question. You've got a story when Joe Biden or Barack Obama's president, that the president, that Joe Biden and Jill have launched a meme coin, and they've raised $200 billion. I'm sorry, $2.9 billion. The heads would be exploding on right-wing media. There would be articles of impeachment introduced. There would be, everything, right? Everything. Where in the fucking... This is why the world laughs at us. This is why when you leave the borders of the U.S., the world is laughing. Like, you got a president who is first of all, is nuts. who is now enriching himself even more so this time than he did the first time. And this is just stuff that we can see, right? Never mind the $2 billion that he's made from crypto, the $200,000 a plate dinner to gain access, and they never even got access. Fast track permits in Vietnam to be able to build properties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're right. But Mike Johnson said it's okay because the corruption from the Biden administration was behind closed doors, although they never found any. Donald Trump's corruption is right out ahead, is right out in front of us. We can see it. I wish I could find that quote. It's out there somewhere. I have it. But literally, this corruption is right in front of us. He's being fully transparent. He's being fully transparent that he's making $2.9 billion on the backs of the American taxpayer while people can't feed their kids. What? Okay. A couple more bits of sound here, and then we can probably wrap for the day. Okay. This is Fox News. Again, the safe space of Fox. Let's play this sound. This is damaging. This is about Medicaid, healthcare.
Made Obamacare, and all those states got the free money. And now all of a sudden, Medicaid doesn't look anything like it was supposed to, and it's 95% financed by the federal government. It's supposed to be a state program.
And the longer we leave it that way, the more permanent that becomes.
Right, because people get addicted to the free money.
People get addicted to healthcare. What? As long as we have programs that provide healthcare, affordable healthcare to people, they're going to get addicted to it. We can't let that happen. We can't let people get addicted to eating. We can't let children get addicted to having clean water, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We can't let that happen. We can't let children, we can't allow people to be addicted to government-supported healthcare. God, that would be awful. What? Yeah, exactly. People get addicted to things we pay for. What? I think I'm going to have a background. Gregory, we need to make a background that just says, what? Okay. All right. One more piece, and then I'll wrap for the day. Okay, here we go. This is a good one. It's my buddy, Triple K Caroline. And then I know you guys ask, no, she's not wearing her cross in this clip, which means she's going to really lie.
Thank you, Caroline. President Trump and his top economic aides have repeatedly said that Americans will not pay the cost of tariffs. In fact, last week, Lutnick said people have to drop the, quote, silly arguments that consumers would pay the cost. But over the weekend, as you know, the president posted that Walmart should eat the tariffs and not charge the value customer anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. So does he acknowledge that if companies don't absorb the full cost, Americans will have to pay?
Well, first of all, the CEO of Walmart made those comments about the tariffs on an earnings call where CEOs, I believe, are legally obligated to give the most dire warnings and forecasts to their investors and stakeholders. The reality is, as the president has always maintained, Chinese producers will be absorbing the cost of these tariffs. And that is why China was so quick to hustle to the negotiating table with the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumers. And I would again point you to the inflation report that came out last week showing that inflation is declining in large part because energy prices are dropping across the board in this country because of the president's robust energy agenda that he has taken since January 20th. So the president is committed to ensuring that prices remain low for American consumers, and he maintains the position that foreign countries will absorb these tariffs.
He maintains the position that foreign countries will absorb these tariffs. That's cool. I can maintain the position that I could play shortstop for the Red Sox just on a whim. Doesn't mean it's true. The president maintains his position that foreign countries will pay the tariffs. That's cool. That's great. Problem is that's not true. And in response to that, this is what Mr. Trump had to say because of Caroline saying China is backing down. Well, really? Okay, hold on.
I like President Xi of China. Always have and always will. But he is very tough and extremely hard to make a deal with. Uh-oh.
It's really funny, right? I mean, you got to laugh. You have to laugh. You've got people like Howard Nutlick going out there telling people that don't worry about it. What's a little pain? No big deal. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You know, if my mom and dad lost their Social Security or their Social Security check was delayed, no big deal. We got President Trump begging China to absorb the cost and or Walmart to absorb the cost of the tariffs because people who with a brain, even the scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz, knew that tariffs are paid by the consumers, right? And then you got Caroline doubling down on it, but nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Okay. I think we're going to wrap there, friends. Been a great show today. You know, again, I really want people to think, I guess the last thing I'll do is I'll just read this again because I just think it's really important. This is kind of what I want people to understand. A truly just government, an ideal government should do 6 things and do them well. It should protect our rights, our privacy, our voice, our freedom to speak and worship and live in peace. It should promote opportunity, not just for the wealthy or the well-connected, but for every child in every zip code. It should build public infrastructure, so our roads, our broadband, our schools are the best in the world and prepare us for the future. It should safeguard the common good from pandemics, pollution, the climate crisis, etc. It should create a fair economy, one where hard work pays off and no one gets left behind. And it should foster trust in each other and trust in our democracy itself. All right, I'll leave it at that. Who can raid, mods? You guys want to raid today? Anybody have any ideas? Oh, Daniela? Yeah, let's raid Daniela, our friend, the knitting cult lady. You guys all know Daniela. And again, last reminder here. You know the story by now. You'll see the voting forum. My daughter's band is called Punch. If you can go to the voting forum and vote for Punch, the voting closes on Friday. Please, if you wouldn't mind, I appreciate that. Again, we're going to raid our friend Daniela, the knitting cult lady. Please tell her we said hi when you went over there. I love you guys. Thank you, mods. You're amazing human beings. Everybody, take care of yourselves. See you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time.